Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, everyone. A pleasant good morning, one and all. Welcome, dissidents, to the DueDissidence podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello. With
Russell
his mic facing the right way.
I was just going to say that. Russell Dobular now has his microphone facing the right way. It's a directional mic. I almost offered that advice on the air, but I didn't want to give credibility to the Vanguard's ageist smears against you, so I didn't, because it sounds like kind of a thing. Hey, Grandpa, are you sure the cable box is plugged in? You know what I mean? So I didn't want to do it.
Not really. I mean, microphones are not like, directional mics are sweeping the nation. What do you mean you don't know about directional mics? If it was like, hey, did you turn on your computer? Then
is it plugged in?
Is the computer plugged in? Are you running Chrome? Then maybe. I mean, a directional mic. Who the fuck knows anything about that? Apparently, one of our viewers, because somebody commented that he thought that was the problem. Must be a sound engineer or something.
Must be a sound engineer. Hey, how's the sound out there, folks? We've been racking our brains trying to figure out which way to point the microphones. Tell us if we got it right. All right, give us a thumbs up if the sound is good. And give us a thumbs up anyway. Hit that like button. It is the morning. People are out there sleeping. People need to wake up. We need the algorithm to wake people up. So we got to juice that algorithm in the morning. Hit that like button here on YouTube. Hit that like button over on Rumble. We have 171 in the YouTube chat, 62 strong in the Rumble chat. That's what we love to see. We have a Rumble rant that has come in already. We are without Jake this morning, so I will not be able to display Rumble rants, but I will read Rumble rants. So your Rumble rants will be read. Do not worry about that. And depending on how we're going, there we
go. People want to know about your progeny, Keaton.
Oh, yes. Are people asking about my little guy? Mm-hmm. All right. So we got some news about my little guy. Thank you, Kim, for the question. Appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, for your concern. And thank you, everybody, for reaching out, for all the well wishes. We did get blood work back, and we talked to the doctor this morning, actually, and they are thinking, they're almost positive, in fact, that he has mono, which I mentioned as a possibility on the last show. And so in a sense, that is a relief, because we know it's not something more aggressive like a bacterial infection that's like, spreading dangerously. Because at first they thought it could be meningitis. They thought it could be appendicitis at one point because he was having a lot of lower abdominal pain. But mono seems consistent with his symptoms, and so he's bedridden basically. I mean, he's very, very tired. His lymph nodes are like golf balls, which is what happens when you have mono. So he needs constant care, which of course we're happy to provide for him. But it seems like in a week or so they're expecting to see some significant improvement as it runs its course. So it's not good news, but it's definitely a relief that it's not something worse, because it was a very, very tense period of days. Just when we were
for a parent.
Oh yeah, it's horrible. I mean, being a parent, it's very scary in that sense that this person who you care about much more than yourself is outside your own body. In a sense, it's also liberating for that same reason. Like, you kind of feel like, all right, whatever happens to me, as long as the kid's okay, I will have done well, but it's a double-edged sword in that way psychologically. And so, yeah, it was a scary thing. During the debate, when we were streaming, I had to cut out for a little while because he was just having trouble moving around, and it's horrible. I regretted doing the stream a minute before we went on, because that's when my wife texted me he's having trouble getting up. So it's been a real grind. It's been tough, but luckily there's some light at the end of the tunnel now. And thank you all very much for your kind words and support throughout this whole thing. Thank you for bearing with us as we adjust the schedule and things like that. We are going to have our patron-only stream tomorrow night. That'll be a lot of fun. Lots to talk about on that. So that'll be tomorrow night at 8 p.m. I do want to announce, because there are some of you lovely people were planning on meeting us at the Jimmy Dore show tonight. Russell will be there. I will not, because of what I am dealing with here at home. And, honestly, I just have to say, one of the things that's important when your kid has mono is you don't want to expose him to any more germs. So I kind of have to hunker down and not get sick myself this week, because his immune system is tapped out. I mean, his lymph nodes are as big as they could be.
I mean, with all the with all the sleeping around I did. I'm just carrying diseases they don't even have names for at this
Well,
point.
that's the other thing I have to take care of today. I have to text all of his girlfriends and tell him, not this week. You got to wait.
Not this week, exactly. Yeah. I have things they brought back from the moon landing.
Right, exactly.
So you don't want to be around me. No, seriously, when I go to meet Jimmy later, I am going to be bringing a proposal from Graham. He has lined up a psychotherapist, and if Jimmy agrees to lock himself in a room with him and pretend to be his father so he can work out his shit on him, he promises to stop talking about him on the air. So we'll see what he says.
We'll see what he says. See what he says. Yeah, but no, Jimmy just got back to us for a meet and greet. So yeah, you'll get to hang out a little bit with him and tell him I said hello and explain why I cannot be there because it sucks. I was looking forward to that for a while, but this obviously has to come first for reasons that are obvious. So given that, let's get to a couple of orders of business here. We have a Rumble rant from Laugh for $2. This is a test to see if you see my Rumble rants. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We are, like I said, we are without Jake on the morning shows, but I have a window open, so I will see the Rumble rants and I will catch them. So thank you very much, and thank you all for being there over on Rumble. 67 strong in there. 255. All right, getting a little crowd filing in this morning. We have a lot to take care of this morning. A lot of stuff to talk about. This has been a week where we've had a big interview. We had a debate. We haven't gotten to much headlines this week. And we've been migrating to Rumble twice in a row, just how it's happened to work out. But here we're on YouTube the whole time, and Rumble and Rockfin. So settle in, and let's get the party started. D.C. Democrats sue to block ranked choice voting ballot measure. In Washington, D.C., this is from the Washington Post. We'll read a little bit of this. Just weeks after the D.C. Board of Elections determined that a proposed ballot initiative to bring ranked choice voting and open primaries to the city's elections was legally sufficient to move forward, the D.C. Democratic Party has filed a lawsuit that would keep it off the ballot, arguing that the measure violates the U.S. Constitution, and Home Rule Charter. The lawsuit.
Okay, I am assuming, we're not lawyers here. I'm assuming the angle there is because of the special status that DC has. I don't see how else you could make that kind of an argument.
I don't think that argument has been made anywhere else. But we'll read on.
I'm assuming that's based in its special status, but I could be wrong.
So filed August 1st in D.C. Superior Court and first reported by DSIST says the city's elections board erred last month when it determined that the proposed initiative was proper subject matter and asked the court to permanently block it from being implemented. While the measure's organizers still have a long way to go before the Make All Votes Count Act, also known as Initiative 83, reaches next year's ballot, it has already drawn a chorus of opposition, including from the city's Republican Party. As proposed, Initiative 83 started in 2026 would allow more than 80,000 people registered as unaffiliated to vote in D.C.'s primary election, which is currently closed to them. Pardon me. It would also implement a ranked choice balloting system in the city. Supporters of the measure, who argued Tuesday that the Democratic Party's lawsuit was filed prematurely and should be dismissed, say these two charges would make elections more accessible in the district. Opening primaries would give unaffiliated residents in Deep Blue D.C. a voice in the city's crucial primary elections. As for ranked choice voting, proponents say it would ensure elected candidates receive at least 50% of the vote, which isn't always the case now. Now, it's not always the case now nationwide. But the thing that makes this particularly egregious, in my view, is that this is happening in Washington, D.C., which is dominated by the Democratic Party. So this strikes me as simply a flex of power and a way to sort of drown these kinds of initiatives in the bathtub because they're afraid that they may catch on and spread elsewhere. In order for ranked choice voting to even come into play where it has the potential to affect a race, there has to be no candidate achieving majority support on the first round. DC goes literally, 80, 90% Democrat. So In what universe would you even get to a second round here? Right? In what universe would the amount of independents, which is very, very small, like I said, D.C. is one of the bluest cities in the country. In fact, I think at the presidential level, it's the bluest city in the country. You're talking about mid-90s support for Democrats. So what the hell could they possibly be worried about? Republicans also made an argument. It goes on. I don't have to read that whole thing, but Democrats basically said, well, if there's more than two choices, it'll be confusing to voters, which is obviously an insult to voters. And the Republicans reverted to their classic, well, voter fraud. It makes the process corrupt and things like that. So both parties just sort of reverted to their sort of pitch issues here in order to try and stop this. But the fact that they are trying to stop this in Washington, D.C. shows either that this is just a flex or that they are nervous about the influence of third parties down the road. It could be either one. It could be a little bit of both in this case, since this measure wouldn't even affect 2024. It would start in 2026. So when you talk about Cornel West, that's not even a factor here. This wouldn't even start this cycle.
Yeah, finding out the Democrats are against democracy, it's like when you get to the fifth level in Scientology and find out they're really not into science.
Yeah.
It's right there in the name. You would think they'd be for democracy, but apparently not. It's funny when you look at their arguments. It's clearly a kitchen sink argument. They're just making every argument they can make, figuring at least one of them will stick and they'll be able to kill this. And yeah, the article that we're basing this on, the Washington Post article, it didn't focus on the Republicans, but it did mention, just to be clear, they're not any more in favor of allowing a democratic process than the Democrats are. It's just that the Democrats, in their wisdom, decided not to pretend to believe in the rights of voters. But if you look at the arguments they're throwing out, some of these arguments are like, well, if all the constitutional arguments fail, at the very least, do you think that our DC government would be competent to administrate something like this?
Right.
We can barely run elections now.
Right.
You think we could have? Wow, that really makes the case that you should be in charge. Who's been in charge of DC all these years? If you're so good at running DC, why is it so dysfunctional that you're arguing that you can't have ranked choice voting here? And besides that, I've touched on this here and there, that I'm sympathetic to some of the arguments that you see black conservatives make about the liberal take on black communities. And, it is to their credit, given that it's the Washington Post, that they gave ink to the people who said, because they're arguing, well, it would be too confusing for people. They wouldn't know how to handle it. It would be discriminatory. Well, that's racist. You're saying black people can't figure out ranked choice voting. So I am sympathetic to some black conservatives who argue there's this condescending attitude that's so woven into their relationship to that community. So many of their arguments are predicated on the idea of Joe Biden summed it up very well when he explained how black parents need help, but they don't know what to do.
Right. They got to put on the record player.
They got to put on the record player, right? It's that. Well, they can't possibly figure out ranked choice voting. Clearly. I mean, you're talking about a city that, from what I know, very much like New Orleans, it's overwhelming majority black city. So when you're saying the people there can't figure out ranked choice voting, who are you talking about?
Yeah, well, this is from the article here. I'll just read paragraph 2 here. The lawsuit, meaning the lawsuit that the Democrats filed contesting this, repeats other claims against the ballot initiative that were dismissed by the D.C. Elections Board when it allowed the measure to proceed, including an argument it would cost money to implement. Ballot initiatives by law cannot have fiscal impact. The Democratic Party further alleges that the measure runs afoul of the D.C. Human Rights Act by discriminating against residents in low-income areas of the city who might be confused by the new system.
What does that mean?
The initiative's backers have said that claim is insulting to black voters, which, of course, it obviously is.
Well, and it's also racist and it's classist, because you're saying poor people are too dumb to figure out how to do ranked choice voting, right? Again,
what they're really worried about is that poor people and black people are too smart to keep voting Democrat, and they're afraid that if given other options, they won't. That's what they're actually afraid of.
Exactly, but they're very comfortable. You know, when I do tours of the Lower East Side, I get into that a little bit because you still have what we today call a community center. They used to call settlement houses. And you still have a couple of them extant on the Lower East Side from that era, University Settlement and Henry Street Settlement. And those were established really by these upper class Ivy League WASPs who had a very condescending attitude about the communities they were supposed to be helping. So they would do these annual reports whose thesis was, well, Jews can probably never behave according to European standards of behavior, but at least maybe we could get them to stop stealing. And these were the social workers, right?
Right.
So there's always been this element of patrician condescension in the Democratic Party's attitude, even towards the communities that it claims to be trying to help. And I think you see some of that there in that argument.
Indeed. And just to put a button on this, because I've made this point in the past, but you see here how, because the Democrats have everything to lose in D.C., they are battling ranked choice voting. In a Republican city or town, they would be fighting it. The two major parties are never going to give you ranked choice voting. So when you hear someone like Kyle Kulinski say, well, we can't vote third party until we get ranked choice voting, it's never going to work that way. Why would the duopoly just, out of the kindness of their heart, give up their grip on power? The way to actually win ranked choice voting is to start voting third party. Because if you start voting third party, then one of the two major parties, be it the D's or the R's, are going to see, oh, we could either lose votes to the third parties, or if we pass ranked choice voting, there's a chance we may pick up some of those votes on the second round. Because if their theory is right, which is that Greens will vote Democrat on the second round, then Democrats are going to see in the Green Party not a spoiler, but an opportunity for second round votes. So they're more likely to pass ranked choice voting under those circumstances. Just saying, well, we can't vote third party until they give it to us, that's a dead end. Obviously, what is in it for them to give it?
Have you ever seen things you will never see? You're never going to see Congress argue to reduce its own salary.
Right, exactly.
And what happened with the Stock Act? What happened? What happened? Remember, there was so much reporting about how they're going to pass new rules and new laws. They dicked it around until people stopped talking about it. There's no fucking way that they're going to give up their insider trading opportunities. They're not going to do it. It's anything that's going to, it's who watches the Watchmen. You know, you elect these politicians and then you ask them to do something that undermines their power. They're never going to do it. That's part of how we got here.
Of course. That's like saying, well, we want free subway fare in New York City, but we can't get there until the mayor and all of the city government officials take a huge pay cut. Well, that means you're never getting free transportation. If it's going to come out of their pocket, they're never just going to give it to you, right? All right.
Although I will say, just to put a button out on it anecdotally, one of the permanent changes post-COVID is they do not enforce fare jumping the way they used to, and the buses, at least in Harlem, are de facto free. Like, you just get on the back doors, you go in the back doors, and they don't follow up on it. It's very strange. You almost have free MTA for the poor at this point in New York City.
If they want it, right.
If they want it, they kind of have it. Book.
If you got the balls to take it.
If you take it, are you man enough to take it?
Are you man enough to that's the line. Are you man enough to take it?
All right. So I can't imagine most of our depraved audience haven't read this, but we're covering BRICS later. So book of the day, an oldie but a goodie, a classic, a foundational text of the left, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. If you have not read it, you must read that immediately, because when you look at BRICS, BRICS is to a large extent a response to the reality as opposed to the myth of the relationship the United States has had to the rest of the world for most of its history. So this guy, according to him, he basically was an operator for these big companies that would go in and devastate the economies in South American and Central American regions, help to overthrow their governments, help to undermine their economic independence. And I mean, anyone who's paying attention knows we never really stopped operating this way. BRICS is basically victims of the United States and Western economic and foreign policy getting together to try to fight back and create alternative institutions. And I think you really have to have some knowledge of the history here to understand what brought about BRICS and what they're trying to do. So definitely check this out if you haven't already.
Excellent pick. Do a couple of super chats here. Courtney Conover, thanks for the $5. Your show gift is arriving in the mail today during the course of the show. Oh, well, that's very nice of you, Courtney. Thank you very much. I guess Russell, you keep an eye out for that. I'm going to hold Eric Housseau's super chat until the Trump segment because it's more relevant there. But don't worry, Eric, I do see it, and I will not forget about you. The Willie Bragg Show, Dirtbag Leftist. Thanks for the $5, Willie. Good morning, DueDissidence, and to my fellow free speech zealots, Dirtbag Leftists, Crypto, Soak Dems, Tankies, and recovering Bernie Bros and Tulsi Bros. Well, good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Mr. Bragg.
We'll take some more super chats and Rumble rants as we go. Those are super helpful, folks. They are what make these morning shows possible. So thank you very much for your contributions. But speaking of third-party politics, Cornel West appeared on Meet the Press Now this week. He did an interview with Kristen Welker. It was about 10 minutes long. She asked him repeatedly variations of the question, why are you running third party? Why aren't you running as a Democrat? And when are you dropping out of the race? So we didn't play the full interview. We have a couple of questions here that I just want to play. This is about 4 minutes. We will stop and start as we go.
He handled this quite masterfully.
This was good.
Yeah. And this is why I felt like, and I've been critical of some elements of his campaign, like he's not returning our calls, things like that. But I don't know why he doesn't want the DueDissidence bump. I mean, every time we mention Trump, his numbers go up. Clearly, exactly. We're having an effect.
We're doing great things for Donald Trump now.
We're doing amazing things for Donald Trump. Yeah, that interview he had with Anderson Cooper, he's just getting his sea legs. He's never run for president before. I thought if you watch this, you could see he learned from that interview how to field these kinds of questions.
For sure. All right, so first she starts out, I mean, these are a couple of different points in the interview, but I thought this was noteworthy for the response he gets from her, and you'll see what I mean. This is her saying, hey, Bernie ran as a Democrat twice. You like Bernie. Why don't you follow his advice?
Ally. Senator Bernie Sanders, he's your longtime political ally. Senator Bernie Sanders, he's not a Democrat, but he did, as you know, run twice in the Democratic presidential primary. So let me just put the question to you. Why have you decided to run as a third-party candidate rather than a Democrat challenging President Biden?
Yes, I mean, Bernie Sanders, as you know, is my very dear brother. I have a deep love for him. We have disagreement at this historical moment. I'm thoroughly convinced that neither party is speaking to the pressing needs of poor and working people. And so the two-party system itself is becoming an impediment for the flowering of American democracy. We've got too many fellow citizens, 63% living paycheck to paycheck. And many of us know exactly what that means, no matter how big or small our check actually is. And so in that sense, I must say that it's hard to view oneself as a spoiler when there's increasing rot in the system with two parties connected to big money, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and militarism.
Look at that. That's why I wanted to play that. Look at that nod. I mean, what have I talked about all the time? I talk about the liberal cat stare, right? Where when you start talking about how 63% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, can't afford $500 emergency, right? The liberals look at you like a cat looks at you when you're talking to it. Like, huh? Like, okay, I know you're talking to me. What exactly are you saying? Do you expect me to understand this? I'm a cat, right? I don't understand what you're saying. That's the reaction you usually get. Look at this reaction he gets from liberal media. Look at that squint and the nod. She feels it. She gets it. That's how you know it's a good answer. I honestly do. As someone who's pointed out the liberal cat stare over and over again, I was really taken to see that. Because when he mentioned the same points to Caitlin Collins, what did she give him? Huh?
Yeah.
Huh? That's the reaction you get all the time. She actually felt it. That actually worked. That's how you know that was a good answer.
I mean, Caitlin Collins, that's also who she is and the reason that they decided to, I don't know, build the network around her. They decided they're going to move forward with her. They want an automaton. They want an automaton who's just going to parrot the party line, who doesn't have any particular thoughts of her own or personality. Like, she really has no personality at all.
Right.
And that it says a lot about them that seems to be how they want to move forward with a figure like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's mostly what's on offer in that world. The thing I find funny about this question, though, it's hilarious when she says, well, you know, Bernie Sanders, your ally, he wasn't a Democrat, but he ran as a Democrat. Why aren't you running as a Democrat? As if the line of attack from these people against Bernie Sanders was that he had no business running as a Democrat because he's not a Democrat. That's what they always told. They told Bernie Sanders that every time he was on TV. Are you a Democrat? With the implication being, why are you running in the Democratic Party if you're not a Democrat?
Right.
And so now they're saying, well, why don't you run as a Democrat, being that your friend? See, they always wanted Bernie to run as a Democrat because they knew he was no threat as a Democrat because they could always rig it against him as a Democrat. And now they're trying to pull this like switch around. This very Orwellian switch.
Well, that's why
like,
he didn't
hey,
get
we
nadered,
love that Bernie Sanders ran as a Democrat, even though we constantly trashed him for not being a Democrat and implied that he had no business running in the Democratic Party. Now we actually, hey, why not do what he did? That worked out great. We rigged it against him. And, you know, the first time Trump won, second time Biden won. That doesn't really matter to us so much as we were able to stop the left populist candidate. And now that he's running as a green, they can't control him. They have no veto power over his candidacy.
I think there's also, we didn't play that part right at the beginning. There's a psychological intelligence to the school of thought that he's coming out of. He's coming out of the Gandhi, Martin Luther King.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
He's coming out of the school of thought that it is very difficult for people to be antagonistic towards you when you're loving towards them. The passive resistance thing is not a Christian in the sense that I think people always take it. There's a strategic intelligence to it, especially when the fight you're in is asymmetric, where you're facing an overwhelming power that you can't possibly defeat with aggression. It's what John Lennon said. You know, the establishment's going to pull your beard, it's going to poke you, because they want you to get violent, because then they know how to handle you. Right? They want you to lash out. He opened this by congratulating her on her new job with the sister
for a minute
thing.
he goes on, oh, Sister Kristen Welker, so beautiful to see you getting this new gig, and I remember you from Harvard Yard, now meet the press. Wow, congratulations. It's very disarming. Yeah, I agree.
And I think that set her up to be more open to what he had to say. It's just how human nature works. It's very difficult to be an asshole to somebody who's complimenting you and being very warm towards you. It's just, it doesn't come naturally to most people to not respond. So that's why by the time he gets to this, he's set her up psychologically to be keyed into what he has to say. And that's you know, that's something else you've said. I agree. That's part of the value of him in particular being the candidate, because he's able to pull that off, right? He's coming out of this tradition of, you know, projecting Christian love, you know, not necessarily in a theological sense, but it's a rhetorical style, and it's very effective, particularly running as a third-party candidate in a media climate where they want to nadir him. He's making it very hard for them to give him the nadir treatment.
Yeah, and they also know that he didn't just turn on this charm once he ran for office. They've known him for decades. He's been like this for decades. They know this is how he is. All right, let's keep going.
People lift every voice. We need many, many more voices, and the two parties that we have are too narrow at this point.
Dr. West, as you know, though, if you look back throughout history, third-party candidates have at times made the difference in presidential elections, including in 2016, when in some key states, Jill Stein, for example, seemed to make a difference. Would you be okay if at the end of the day the vote totals came back, you stayed through the entire race, and it was clear that your candidacy helped deliver former President Trump another term in office.
Right. Now, he gives an answer to this that's a lot longer than the answer I would have given. My answer would have been yes. Are you okay with that? Yes. That's
no,
it.
actually, I wanted him to knock down that myth. I would have liked to have seen him get into the, well, why don't you go talk to the millions of two-time Obama voters that voted for Donald Trump, and why don't you ask why they did that? He didn't go there, but he brought up, he didn't accept the narrative. I appreciated that he got into some of the just statistical reality of the fact that this is a myth, that people who are so turned off to the Democratic Party that even in the face of a Trump presidency, they decided to vote for Jill Stein. What on earth makes you think they would have voted for Hillary Clinton under any circumstances? We know from interviews with people like that, polling people like that, they would have not voted.
Right. Exactly.
They would have done what I do, write in Paul Atreides and other fictional characters.
Let's hear his answer.
Well, the vast number of voters who would vote for a Green Party and myself either would not vote at all or would never, ever, ever vote for Biden or Trump. And that's very important to keep in mind, because there's this narrative, I think it's a false narrative, thinking that somehow they're choosing between Biden and myself. No, not really. They've given up on Biden. What is it now? 48% of our precious fellow citizens do not vote at all, my dear sister. That's not a good sign in a democracy that's already in decay. That's not a good symptom of a democracy already experiencing a kind of decadence. We've got to bring new people in, and neither party is really interested in speaking to that 48% that has given up on American democracy.
So one of the things that he's done, he did very well in this interview, was he answered the question and then pivoted to his points. That's what you have to do. You don't want to duck the question. You want to answer it, and you want to get to your points about 63% living paycheck to paycheck, right? About the low voter turnout overall. So, yeah, I agree. It was very, very well done. And then the big question comes in just a minute. It might even be next. I haven't watched this since last night. When she asked him, are you in it to the end? Because that's the thing I'm most worried about, honestly.
He's
what do you say
fast.
to your fellow progressives,
Indeed.
AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Senator John Fetterman, who've expressed their real concerns about a third-party candidacy? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, quote, it's very difficult to square the very real threat of a Republican presidency with the risk of giving up the very small margin of electoral votes needed to ensure that President Biden wins. John Fetterman says, I fundamentally believe that you don't mess around with the kinds of highest stakes we're dealing with. Can you just imagine what a second term of Trump would be?
Well, notice they bracketed the word dealing because he obviously skipped over that word, which is not necessarily a word you would skip over. I don't want to beat up on John Fetterman, but yeah, I mean, first of all, look, of course they're going to say this. They're Democrats and he's a Green, right? The answer to this is implicit in the asking of the question itself.
Right.
Yet when you operate off the assumption that Biden is better than Trump, these are the kinds of things that go through your mind. When you run as a third party, you cannot operate under that assumption. You can't.
Something he's not going to do, in keeping with what we were just saying about that, the kind of peace and love approach has a tactical point. She says, so your fellow progressives, I mean, if I were sitting there, I'd be, what fellow progressive?
Right, yeah, exactly.
AOC?
Right,
she voted for all the Ukraine funding. What the fuck? What are you talking, fellow progressive? What are you talking
John
about?
Fetterman
doesn't know where the fuck he is.
But John Fetterman doesn't even pretend to be a progressive now. I mean, he basically pivoted to the center as soon as that primary was over. He started saying he was for fracking. He's not for Medicare for all. He started distancing himself from the Sanders
Fetterman, really, I'm not trying to make fun of a disability, but I refuse to pretend that his office holding is normal. I refuse. Listen, this guy shouldn't be there. They propped up a disabled man because they thought it was their best chance at a seat. And if anything, this guy's being abused. I am not going to normalize John Fetterman being in the Senate. He clearly is struggling, and the people around him are just puppeting him as a senator and just telling him what to do, as far as I can see.
It's truly amazing. I mean, one of the biggest electoral, we don't have to get off on a tangent here, but one of the biggest electoral self-owns in history has to be the Republicans nominating Dr. Oz, because anyone else besides Dr. Oz would have side-pocketed John Fetterman so easily in that race. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Wait, what do you call it? What's the name of it?
Crudité. Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible.
Do you see the cost of crudité? You can't make that up. That's like Thurston Howell III for president.
Yeah, exactly. All right, here we go.
It's all going to be about revenge. What do you say to your fellow progressives who are expressing deep concerns about a third-party candidacy?
Again, this is just like, I mean, she asked literally the same question 4 times. It's amazing. Every question is the same. But why aren't you running as a Democrat, and will you drop out?
1 out of 8 of the voters for Trump voted for Bernie Sanders.
This is a good answer. I like
Trump
this answer
followers
here.
are not homogeneous and monolithic. If you can speak to their pain, if you can speak to their frustration, they will never vote for Democrats. But many of them would be open to those who are speaking to their needs. They don't have to follow the Pied Piper, the fascist Pied Piper with Trump. A new vision, a different alternative can convince a significant number of them. And so, again, I'm resisting the notion that somehow it's just a matter of myself and Brother Biden.
That's a very clever answer, because he's saying, look, I don't plan on just pulling votes from Biden. I plan on pulling votes from Trump, too. Right. You know, that's a very, very smart answer. He has definitely done some on-the-job learning since those first few interviews.
much better. And hey, you know, that was one of my questions. I said last time we talked about this at length, I had a wait and see attitude. I want to see, because he made a couple of really dumb moves, you know, amateur kind of moves coming out of the gate. And my question was really, you know, is he just too much on that creative, flighty, academic side to really be effective in this role? And this reassures me. No, he's figuring it out as he goes.
Right.
That people are choosing between. No, we've got large numbers of non-voters who are interested, especially young people. Look at the percentage of young people. Only 20-some% participate at all. I want to speak to those young folk. I want to try to galvanize their energy.
Okay, we're short on time. I have to ask you point blank.
Dr. West,
are you
I'm getting a
seriously
hard
going to do
wrap,
this?
so just yes or no. Are you in this until the very end, or is there a chance you'll reconsider at some point and potentially drop out?
Well, I am a jazz man, you know that, but I intend to be in it to the very end, because it's not just about it's not about this particular election only. It's about a larger movement. We've got to break the two-party system, and to do it is now. And if we don't do it now, we'll find ourselves back and forth with this swing between the fascists on the one hand and the neoliberals on the other.
All right. So the fact that, you know, they're starting to staff up now and that this is starting to become formalized gives me more hope, because you also have to believe, as much as, you know, the Green Party does not have a reputation for being a particularly tight, disciplined, well-run organization, you have to think the reputational harm, to borrow a phrase from AOC, that they would suffer if their candidate dropped out at the last minute would just be catastrophic. There'd be no Green Party. Like, their support would just completely evaporate. If
nobody would ever bother again.
No one would ever bother again. So you have to imagine they're having some conversations like, okay, we're getting ready. This is getting official now. If you're going to do this, you have to stay in till the end no matter what. You cannot fuck us like that. So that's where we're at. And I thought, that was a very, very good and encouraging interview.
That definitely reassured me that he's up to the job. I had my doubts, as you know. I've voiced them on the show. I've had a wait-and-see attitude, and I still do. Let's see. I mean, it's one thing. This is still early days. We're not even past Labor Day yet.
Of course, yeah.
The interview
over
she just
a year
gave
from the
him,
election. Yeah.
Look, my sister, congratulations on your promotion. That shit's not going to be working by January when he's polling 6%.
Right.
And Biden is losing to Trump. Right, so let's see how he handles that going forward, but it's encouraging. It's encouraging. I like what I'm seeing.
Indeed. And we can contrast the third-party stuff that we've been covering so far with some Democratic Party politics here. This is an amazing video that surfaced yesterday. This is a truly incredible video.
Too early for this.
Yeah, exactly. This will wake you up, folks. This will get your blood going. Climate Defiance. It's like a youth climate protest group, attended a swanky fundraiser for the Democratic governor of Massachusetts, Maura Healey, and they protested her accepting donations from fossil fuel companies. She has blocked a couple of fossil fuel limiting projects in and around Boston, and so they came there to voice their concern. And, you know, like, I know some of the youth climate groups have a bit of a reputation for being a little cringy with the soup on the paintings and things like that. That's the wrong kind of protest. This is actually the right kind of protest. Don't throw soup on a painting. Go to one of these high-dollar fundraisers where these virtue-signaling, philanthropic mega donors, all these do-gooder libs, gather at what looks like a Cape Cod mansion, I'm going to guess, right? Like a beachside sort of, you know, very, very big house, as you can see, and make a ruckus. And that's what they did. So we're going to play this video. Steve Donziger sort of popularized this video by tweeting it out. That's where I saw it. This is the full version. So it's about 1 minute and 45 seconds, which features the action. And look at the response of these wonderful, nice, liberal Democrats. This is who actually funds the party. This is a great video to play, because now you actually see who actually runs the Democratic.
You know, these are the people who, when DeSantis sent the migrants to Martha's Vineyard, talked in the off season in a resort town with thousands of empty hotel rooms about how they didn't have the room or the resources to take care of these people. Right. And you know, gave them a little gift bag with a juicy box and some Kellogg's travel size cereal, and wave them off smiling to an army base. That's who these people
That's who this is. And actually, I'm glad you mentioned Martha's Vineyard. This is actually Nantucket. That's the location of this mansion. A very, very wealthy area. All right, so here it is. So there's the governor.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We're in the midst of a climate emergency.
What's your name?
My name is Matt.
Nice to meet you, Matt.
I'm 20 years old and you're throwing my future. The state of Massachusetts is building 10 new fossil fuel infrastructure projects right now. We need you to ban new fossil fuel infrastructure right now. Will you commit to doing that? Yes or no?
Let's talk about that, okay?
Let's talk about it. Yes or no?
Let's talk about that. There's a huge transition that we're undergoing, and there's a lot of work to do. But let me tell you, and I
appreciate... The first step of the transition is to ban new fossil fuels. Will you ban new fossil fuel infrastructure?
I think it's enough.
I think it's enough.
I appreciate it's democracy.
End fossil fuels, Mara. End fossil fuels. End fossil fuels, Mara. End fossil fuels.
We are being protested against.
How did I assault you?
Look at this one.
Get out! The fossil fuel industry.
Fucking piece of shit.
Look at this one.
Listen, I'm gonna warn the audience here. I'm gonna stay on the right side of YouTube, but some things bring my queens out. These motherfuckers bring out the queens in me, man. Like, this is hard for me to watch, honestly. I'm furious every time I see
this is really, really,
End fossil fuels, Mara. End fossil fuels.
You assaulted us.
How did I assault you?
There is no future.
Get out!
The fossil.
She's the one who obviously paid for the catering. Like, she strikes me as the person who actually put money out to organize this and is like, you're fucking me here. You know, because this is how this, like, high-dollar fundraising world works. Like, you host an event, it goes well, you get to host more events, you get to rub more elbows. I know people who have done fundraising like this. That's how it goes. So an event goes sideways like this with a bunch of riff-raff climate activists come in. You know,
now you don't get invited to play bridge with the cool people
they don't
anymore.
use your house anymore because you can't be trusted to make it run right. So
you didn't have security.
Get out!
How did these kids get in?
Exactly.
The fossil fuel industry bought you out. The fossil fuel industry gave you $50,000. And fossil fuels, more and fossil fuels.
I've been a climate activist for longer than you've been alive. With the white wine in his hand.
And fossil fuels.
I'm going to touch you. All right, did you see that?
And fossil fuels.
Touch you.
I'm going to touch you.
You've hurt your cause.
Standing there with the glass
Hold me back. Hold me back. Yeah, listen, man. I'm going to be careful how I say this, but this guy thinks he's a fucking tough guy. I would love to see him meet a tough guy. He's going after the generic teenager from The Simpsons over here. Like he's a fucking tough guy.
Like he's a fucking tough guy with his Sauvignon Blanc in his hand, chasing them around. I'm going to touch you. First he touches the girl. He says,
Marty, it's enough. It's enough. They're leaving, Marty.
Right, leave alone. What an asshole. All right, but it gets worse.
No new fossil fuels. We've spoken to her before, and she's ignored us.
You have no idea how to get things done.
You have no idea how to get things done. Look at this shot here. Look at this picture. He's telling her you have no idea how to get things done. Look at the size of that house in the background. Look at the swanky party that they're having on there. How you get things done is you make enough money to get invited to this party.
That driveway is bigger than my apartment.
Exactly. The driveway is bigger than most people's apartment. How you get things done is you make enough money to get invited to one of these events, and then you grease the politicians to give you some of what you want. That's how they view getting things done. Actually disrupting an event with grassroots activism, that's not how you get things done. That's rude, as he goes on to say. But look at that image. I mean, this says it all.
Well, this is very much, and it's what we've said about the Democrats, and it's very clear. This is an aristocracy that believes that it has in effect, divine right to rule. They call their divine right meritocracy, right? They went to the right schools and they got good grades and they, did what they were supposed to do, and they're professional class people. And if the people are revolting, the fault is always of the people, right? That's why they're so supportive of censorship, because clearly, if these people are saying things that challenge their narratives, the fault could not be with the narratives. Therefore, the people are foolish. The people are ignorant. The people must be corrected. They can't be exposed to these counter narratives because that's dangerous for the people. There are very few elites that see themselves as illegitimate, right? I mean, I don't know if there are even examples in history where an elite class saw itself as illegitimate. They're always going to justify their position. And when you look at democracy, that's maybe the greatest cloak in history for an elite class to cover up its elite status, right? Well, it's a democracy. We're not an aristocracy. Clearly, you are an aristocracy. Did anyone vote for these people?
Right.
Their money controls our political process.
Who is this guy? I don't even know who the hell this guy is. I mean, I know who he is now because he actually issued a tweet after this incident, which we'll get to in a moment. Well, but look at how this goes.
Who was it who actually said it out loud that there are about 500 people who decide who the nominee is going to be?
I forget who you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
I think I know.
I'm sure some of our people.
Someone in the chat.
Someone in the chat.
All right, let's hear the rest of this.
We're afraid because our lives are going to end.
My lives too. We're all the same age.
No, we're not. I'm 20. How are you?
Fine. I have kids that are 9.
Okay.
You have absolutely no idea how to get things done.
Can you tell me what are you doing to help them?
I have solar everything. I have solar in my house.
I have solar in my house.
Going to help us? No, the act.
I virtue signal, and she says, "Well, the act of one person that's going to help us, or is it going to be people in power creating policy that'll help us?" And he blows her off.
Is your individual act going to help us? No, the act of someone in power is going to.
If you had half a brain, you would understand.
We have no money. Laura has power, and she can help save us, but she's not.
But your rudeness prevents you
We're
from talking
die.
to her.
Who cares how rude we are?
I don't mind if you die.
I don't mind.
Wow, I didn't even hear that.
Yeah.
It is said that the people are revolting.
You said it. They stink on ice.
No money. Laura has power, and she can help save us, but she's not.
But your rudeness prevents you
We're
from talking
die.
to her.
Who cares how rude we are?
I don't mind if you die.
I don't mind if you die, actually.
This is who these people are. And, so some people said in the chat, it's not just merit. A lot of them popped out of the right vagina. That's true, too, but they'll never own up to that, right? Because they popped out of the right vagina, and then they went to Harvard. Right? They went to Harvard. They earned their position because they went to Harvard.
Yeah. Now, that guy, his name is Bruce Parcellet. He's not on social media, but apparently he took to a defunct Twitter account to issue an apology since he realized he's on camera telling a climate activist, "I don't mind if you die." And so he takes to Twitter to apologize. He says, "In the heat of the moment, I found myself in a situation during which I made personal comments to a woman that were both highly inappropriate and completely unacceptable. I made a profound mistake and I am deeply sorry. I understand the passion young people bring to the issue of climate change, and I share their belief that the survival of the planet requires all of us to work together on this cause. I'll translate that roughly for you guys. In a moment of, emotional intensity, I revealed who I really am and what I really think about climate activists. I realized after the video surfaced that as a philanthropic mega donor to the Democratic Party, part of my job is to feign respect for climate activists, and me being on camera telling one of them I don't mind if they die kind of fucks up the brand. And so I have to come onto this defunct social media page and issue a mea culpa of sorts that I don't actually mean. No, what you saw there on the driveway was who this guy is. Don't take his apology.
Right.
His apology is
Of
worth
course.
fucking nothing.
Right. It's who you reveal yourself to be when you think nobody's watching.
Right.
That's who you actually are. Yeah, these people are, to revive a very common term of the 60s that's fallen out of fashion, they're pigs. These people are pigs. If there were ever pigs, these are them. And part of that shock and horror, part of that, self-justification for them is, but we're liberals. We are against our own interests.
Right.
We want higher taxes. How dare you come here and accuse us? Right? They're just, that's their attitude, right? That's I've been fighting for this. It's Nancy Pelosi. I've got a basement full of signs about Medicare for all. So how dare you come to us? Don't you realize how we're not the bad guys? The Republicans are the bad guys. They want to destroy the planet. We want to take minimal steps that won't cost us a dime to save the planet. Why are you confronting us? Why don't you go confront the Republicans, which I'm sure these kids do as well. So yeah, this is, I tweeted and you retweeted it from my account. Tell me again how I have to work with these people. Tell me again how I have a moral responsibility to make common cause. Tell me again that there's common cause between me and them, that my interests are aligned with the interests of these people.
Of course.
As a working person.
You know who should tweet out that video? Cornel West, and say, this is why I'm not running as a Democrat, okay? This is why we need a third option. This is why we need a third option. Look how the Democrats actually feel. You saw that house. That was Nantucket. She's the governor of Massachusetts. Nantucket, is one of the wealthiest communities in the country. She's got it right there. That's who funds her campaign. That's who she answers to. The mean hair, get out! Mr.
That's who has her on
with the white
speed dial.
wine, escorting the climate activists out the door. The guy harassing her down the driveway. That's
I'm gonna
who the
touch
Democrats
you.
are. Yeah, that's who the Democrats are.
That motherfucker. Yeah. That fucking guy was the worst, man.
Yeah.
These people live in a world where if they have a problem with their zoning, if something's bothering them, call Maura. Call Maura.
Exactly.
Right? They got her on fucking speed dial, man, and she's gonna take that call because that's who funds her campaign. That's who's gonna fund any future political career she has or any future private sector career she's gonna have. Listen, man, I know somebody, I'll be very obscure. I don't want to get her in trouble. I know somebody who was a councilwoman, like just a councilwoman somewhere. I won't say where. And yeah, she gets out of office. She made some calls and they got her a job. That's how it works. Now, she was not at a level where she's at Lockheed Martin, but they got her a job. So at the higher levels, all the more so, right? It doesn't end when you get out of office. These people got your back when you're out of office for what you did for them when you're in office. That's how it works.
Indeed. All right, folks, we're going to take some super chats, take a super chat break. While we have the super chat break, we do want to remind you guys that our GoFundMe fundraiser is active and we're doing a special 1-for-1 donation match this week. An anonymous donor has agreed to match 1-for-1 any donation that comes in this week. So by, Wednesday. So over these next few shows, any donations that come in will be matched 1-for-1, which means we can very possibly get to our goal of $6,000 to go and do on-the-ground reporting in the early primary states. And then if the primary is still interesting past the early states of Iowa and New Hampshire, we will do more primary coverage in Super Tuesday and maybe even beyond that. If it looks like the primary campaign will be quite boring and quite uncontested past the first 2 states, we will save what money we have left over for a swing state tour during the general election season. Either way, we will put this to great use. We're very, very excited about it. We thank everybody who has donated, and
Thank
we
you.
give
People
special
have been so
thanks.
generous.
Yes,
Yeah.
people have been wonderful. People have been wonderful. So thank you guys. It's very, very moving. And thanks, an extra thanks to our anonymous donor who has agreed to do this 1-to-1 match this week. That's amazing. So
that's to put it in perspective. With a 1-to-1 match, we only need about 1,200 more from
about
y'all.
1,200 more, and that's it.
And we have hit our $6,000 goal, and the whole program is definitely on. We will
then we
be
can
able
start
to
booking
hit
flights, booking hotels, booking the whole
as
thing.
soon as we hit 6, we will start booking rental cars and everything that we're going to need to do this coverage. I'll need a rental car. Keith's just going to drive out there.
I'm going to New Hampshire, baby.
He's going to New Hampshire. I'm going to Iowa. And then if the primary's still going, Texas and Florida. If it's not, then we're going to do on-the-ground election coverage. We'll decide what states to do it in.
I mean, Pennsylvania, that's going to be huge. Pennsylvania's really going to be the most pivotal state in the entire country, I think. Like, that's the new Ohio. Pennsylvania is the new Ohio. You know how the Ohio was like, Ohio, so goes the country. That's really Pennsylvania now, and it's next door. It's very close to New York, so we can really canvass that whole state. Pittsburgh, Philly, Harrisburg, everywhere in between. It'll be a lot of fun. Scranton, definitely.
Yeah, that'll be nice. At least we'll get to go someplace with good food. Philly's got good food.
Philly has great food. Philly's a beautiful
food.
Philly's a wonderful city. I love Philly. Philly's great.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh's very nice too. I haven't spent much time there. It's a lot smaller than Philly, but it's a nice town.
I was only ever there once for like a college theater festival at the Muhlenberg College there.
Okay,
that's the only time I was ever in Pittsburgh. It was very gray and depressing when I was there, but it was a long time ago. I hear it's been revived since then.
I was there a few years ago. We did a jewelry show there, I think 2019, 2018, something like that. It was fun. But Philly I've been to quite a bit, and yeah, that's a great town. I would love to.
I will probably be spending the winter down south. I am roughly planning on being in New Orleans for the winter, which will make it very easy for me to cover what's going on in the primaries down there, assuming they're still going on.
Okay, cool. You can support the show by going to patreon.com/DueDissidence. You get perks like your name up in lights, call-in access to the show, and access to 2 exclusive supporter streams per month. We're a little behind on them this month because of my family issue, so thanks for bearing with us on that. But we are going to fit 2 in this week, the first of which tomorrow night at 8 p.m. So if you sign up at patreon.com/DueDissidence or go become a paid member at DueDissidence.substack.com, you will have access to those patron-only shows. Those are a lot of fun. They're over on Rumble as unlisted links, so they are uncensored and really wild and really fun, so we love those. And if you can't sign up as a paid Substack subscriber, please sign up for free over there. That gives you a newsletter where we will, for example, this last week, we emailed everybody the deal with the RNC debate stream. Okay, we're going to start on YouTube, switch to Rumble. This way you know what's going on. You don't have to rely on hearing it from us live on the air. So go into DueDissidence.substack.com. Super important to keep you in the loop with everything we got going on. While the patron scrolls are going on, why don't we take some super chats here? We have some pretty nice ones, so thank you very much. Mr. Fancy Pants for the $4.99. Years ago, D.C. voted to raise the tipped wage to $15, and the council overrode it. Wow, so they overrode a ballot initiative. Wow. That's amazing.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Well, this is there when you look at, and I'm not making an argument for the Republicans here, but there's no man bites dog story to Republicans not taking care of their poor. But legitimately, if you look at these states that basically have one-party Democrat rule, those are some of the worst places for homelessness and poverty.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course. Especially when there's no check. I mean, they could do whatever they want. If there's no competition, then that makes it all the more easy for those people at the Nantucket Mansion to just...
That's it.
Exactly.
That's it. And for anyone who's going to say, well, that's because the poor people vote Democrat, we did a whole segment on this when Sabby was on. The Washington State has a more regressive tax scheme than Texas.
Right.
So that has nothing to do with the poor voting in Democrats. No. In the end, they are a party of the self-satisfied aristocracy that believes that they are morally superior. Everything that the Republicans throw at them, it all sticks. But the Republicans have their own problems.
Right. Indeed. Kuznetsky Bassane, thanks for the $4.99. We appreciate that very much. Eric, since we're doing Trump next, I'll put your super chat up since this is relevant now. When Trump becomes president again, he should mega troll his detractors and liberal media by hanging his own portrait, meaning the mugshot, I assume, from his previous stint. Thank you. Yes. We will get to that very, very shortly. Leprechaun Alley, thanks to the $19.99. I had mono at 45 and had pneumonia for 8 months, but I used OSHA root tea. Wow. Which is a Navajo remedy. That's what got rid of it for me. I'll share it with you on X. Thank you. Please do. YouTube has broadened their medical misinformation policies, so I don't know if I can promote root tea without getting in trouble, but thank you for the suggestion. I will take it under advisement and run it by the fine folks over at the CDC to see if I'm allowed to use it. Thank you very much.
Let me tell you, I have never, you want to talk about home remedies, I've never found anything that will knock out a throat infection like hot toddies will.
Oh, yeah, no, they work, for sure. Indeed. Mr. Methuselah, thanks for the $20. Very generous of you. Appreciate that. Eric Husso, Thomas Frank, and Chris Hedges are my yin. And yeah, there you go. Good point.
Hey, I just want to, we've never done a segment on this. We should, because we keep waiting for a slow news day to cover some of these stories, and we never do. Somebody said under capitalism, classism is racism. It is, but it's not that simple. They did this fascinating study where people were interviewed for a job, and people could tell from the dialect, from the accent, what class they were from. And the people who were from a lower class were much less likely to get offered a job. And if they were offered it, and it didn't matter what race it was, and if they were offered a job, it was at a lower salary. So if you walk in and you're talking like this, they're much less likely to hire you, which, intuitively and just anecdotally, we all know that, right? I mean, it's the reason I don't talk like that. I always say, get me drunk or angry, I sound like I walked off the set of The Sopranos. That's my natural way of talking.
Right.
It's code. That's why you start code switching, because you know that if you speak like that, it's going to limit your opportunities.
Right, exactly. Pat Donahue, thanks for the €10. It's a big club and we ain't in it. Blue or red, same big donors. It's sad some working people would die in battle for such a party. Indeed. Excellent point. The Land Yacht from Nova Scotia. Nice to see you guys growing. Excellent show. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the donation, and thank you for the kind words. Russell, let's get that singing bowl out for Ruthless Criticism. Gave us a nice, big, fat $50 super chat. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate that. These people can't be that rich. They can't even afford cowbells. Yeah, no cowbells at that party. A little too classy, I guess.
All right. Well, now that we know this is a directional mic, hopefully when I put it here, it won't be too rough on it.
No, that was good. That was very nice. That was beautiful. That worked. And thank you for the generous donation, sir. Appreciate that.
We'll even throw you in a bonus.
I could have used a little more cowbell.
Yes, exactly. We'll do a little bonus for you there. Thank you so much. And these are our newest patron supporters. Thank you guys very much for signing up there. I'll read one more from John Locke, and then we will get back to the program. Don't worry, we will get to all Super Chats and Rumble Rants before the conclusion. For $20, thank you, sir, very much. As far as I'm concerned, that community doesn't deserve the man from Nantucket. Yeah, I mean, that surfaced pretty late last night. At least that was the first time I saw it. I was glad we got to that in time, because that says it all right there. Anybody who tries to browbeat you against voting Green or third party, whatever third party you want to vote for, anybody who tries to sucker you back into the Democratic Party, that's the video you show them.
Show them the video.
Show them that.
That's it.
That says it all. All righty. Let's get to some right-wing coverage. So we covered the Democrats, which I guess is right-wing coverage of a kind. We covered some third-party politics here, but it was a big week for Donald Trump on X, or on Twitter. He made 2 appearances on Twitter, one on the Tucker Carlson show, which we will get to in a moment, but major breaking here. Donald Trump actually tweeted from his official @RealDonaldTrump account for the first time since January of 2021, published his mugshot with his link to his website, DonaldJTrump.com. Mugshot, August 24th, 2023, election interference. Never surrender, DonaldJTrump.com. 137.3 million views. There's his mugshot there.
I love that picture.
Well, you know what's great about this? And look, the Make America Great Again hat is just very basic, sort of cheap design. This is what I always say about Trump. He has this brand of being like very decadent and extravagant. He's actually extremely basic. This graphic that he tweeted out reminds me of the posters that we used to make for our theater shows when I was like 22 and had no idea how to do any graphic design whatsoever. I would just put in a Word document, the title of the show, a picture, the dates, the phone number for tickets. Like, it's that basic.
Waiting for Guffman.
Right, exactly.
Wednesday, 8 p.m.
This is so clearly like a screenshot from a Word document. That's good enough. Let's put it out. Simple enough, straight to the point. That is his official return to Twitter at his official Real Donald Trump account. We also, though, have some video that we want to play from the Tucker Carlson show. This aired while the Republican debate was going on. Obviously, Trump abstained from the debate and decided instead to tape an interview with Tucker, which aired at the same time that debate went on. Russell edited together a couple of moments from this interview. Before we play it, we'll just set it up a little bit. You know, the trailer...
Well, just before we move past the picture.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm sure you've all noticed how the libs are all gleefully sharing this around, including the usual suspects. I just poked a little fun at Mark Hamill today for that. What the fuck are you celebrating? They're acting like they're winning, right? Like every time shit like this happens, his numbers go up. Jesus Christ, don't you realize how fucking despised you people are? Like they're running around, ha ha ha! Oh, this is a great day for democracy. How stupid are you, man? How stupid are you?
Like, even if his election is cuddling with Michelle Obama and sharing candy with her, and that you just indicted for this guy for ostensibly, or theoretically trying to, and obviously gloating all over,
Just the blindness of it. I mean, we really saw this with the 2016 campaign, where they're being told by their media how Hillary's got it in the bag and Texas might go blue and all of this shit, and the reality turned out to be exactly the opposite. I mean, I guess if you're just like I was going to say, I guess if you're just ensconced in that media, you might believe that, but I don't think that's tenable anymore. I don't think it's possible to be as in the bubble as it was in 2016. So how do you celebrate? Like, even if Donald Trump goes down, which, as I've said, that's my conviction, that the deep state is just not going to allow this guy to be president, enough said. So you're going to get DeSantis. Or you're going to get Vivek. I mean, you're not... What do you think? Like, people are going to walk into a voting booth and vote for that fucking Pepperidge Farm guy with Alzheimer's? Or his VP? Which, Trump has a lot of fun with here.
Yes, indeed. He has a lot of fun. He has a lot of fun in this interview. This interview, the trailer for it made it sound like it was going to be a lot more red pill than it was, because Tucker did ask him some questions that had the potential for red pill moments, but Trump obviously wasn't really interested in going there, as we will see when we show this. He was more interested in doing his Rodney Dangerfield sort of shtick comedy.
He was surprisingly cautious and measured, actually, in his answers. It actually, I must say, the way he handled himself in this interview demonstrated more intelligence than he's usually given credit for. He was very careful about what he answered and how he answered it in a way that we don't usually attribute to him. At the same time, you must recognize, watching this, what his skill set is. When you look at him here and you look at other people running, even on the Republican side, he's a star. They're not, right? He's funny, he's loose, he's entertaining. And what I kept thinking watching it was how Dave Chappelle described him. He's an honest liar. I'm sure, and I don't feel like researching every claim that he made. I don't think it matters enough to find out. I'm sure there are things he said in that interview that aren't true, because he was citing a lot of historical facts, and we know Trump has never felt a particular affinity to the truth when he starts invoking these kinds of things. But it doesn't really matter because his overall take on Washington and politics is so much more authentic than anyone else in the game that it doesn't really matter if the specifics of what he's saying are true. The overall point of view that he's presenting about the establishment and the way America works is true in a way that no one else can match.
Yeah, I think that's very, very well put. Very well said. So we're going to play a little bit. Russell cut up some pieces from the interview. Some of Tucker's questions are cut out just for time, but we'll give context. So this first response is when Tucker asked about the guy who, had minors on an island somewhere, as we'll say.
Jesus Christ, we still have people telling us what that was. It's amazing. You got to be very careful with dry humor on this platform.
Yeah, exactly. All right, here we go.
Was killed.
Oh, sure, it's possible. I mean, I don't really believe. I think he probably.
It's possible that Epstein was killed.
Oh, sure, it's possible. I mean, I don't really believe. I think he probably committed suicide. He had a life with beautiful homes and beautiful everything, and he all of a sudden he's incarcerated and not doing very well. I would say
he was not doing very well.
Did, but there are those people.
He was a disaster.
I think you're one of them, right? But a lot of people think that he was killed. He knew a lot on a lot of people.
He was killed,
including maybe me.
So?
Maybe me. Maybe not me. We're not allowed to insinuate that anybody's part of anything here. That's one of the rules that we may have broken. So we're not saying that. He's just saying, maybe. That's
I understand that he had hidden cameras. I'm not sure if those were active during my dalliances.
During when I flew on the plane, or I knew him. I knew him.
I'm not saying I had a meeting with Hillary secretly about what to do about Epstein because it would be bad for both of us.
Bad for both of us. Yeah, exactly. I mean, don't forget he was good friends with him too. So it's not like he's eager for the truth to come out necessarily.
It was, but. If there had been more there, the other side would. It was very interesting the way that played out because, they were very quick to show pictures of Trump with Epstein, and then the more Democrat figures came out, you notice the libs shut the fuck up.
Yeah, it was just kind of all right. Well, right. Maybe
then they didn't want to talk about it anymore.
Right?
But Trump actually did cut off his relationship with him pretty early on. So that kind of stood in his favor. I'm not saying what happened there, who knows, but unlike Bill Clinton, who claimed to only be on his plane twice, and flight logs showed he was on the plane, I think it was 26
over 20
times.
Yeah, it was over 20, whatever it was.
Yeah. And then the picture surfaced of him getting a massage from one of the
right. Exactly. There's all that
so
stuff.
You don't have anything like that on Trump. And I'm not saying Trump is innocent, but the fact set with Trump is actually much better than it is with Bill Clinton, for example.
And the most important thing for YouTube to understand is, we're not saying anything about anything. We don't.
Yeah,
know
we're not saying. Actually, we're reviewing Oppenheimer.
Yeah, we're actually just This is all reaction and commentary.
Review.
Yeah, this is all reaction and commentary.
I think the closer you look, I'm not a conspiracy person at all. I believe everything I hear. But yeah, the closer you look into it. I mean, the Attorney General of the United States, your Attorney General clearly lied about the Epstein death.
Yeah,
and
he was.
Why?
He was certainly. It wasn't well done. They had no cameras. They had no anything. Everybody was sleeping, and a case could be made. Look,
they should have kept him.
I'm not going to get involved in it, but I can tell you, a case could be made.
We have the best security. We have the best guards. Right, the guy who guards the Starbucks at the entrance. This never
would have happened.
They should have kept him at the Starbucks in Trump Tower, right in the concourse in the lobby area.
I was just there yesterday.
I used to go to Trump Tower all the time.
I brought a Polish tour group there.
This was the weird thing. I used to go to Trump Tower all the time when I used to give tours in Midtown because the thing about Trump Tower that I always loved was A, it's open to the public, I think 14 hours a day, and B, they have very lovely and well-kept and very accessible bathrooms, which is very hard to find in Midtown. When you got to take a leak, it is brutal to find a bathroom in Midtown.
Are definitely some of the best bathrooms.
They're great bathrooms. They're beautiful bathrooms. They're perfect bathrooms. And so I used to go and take a leak at Trump Tower like all the time.
People use the bathroom. They can't believe the bathrooms. They can't believe they're beautiful. They're clean.
I used to take a piss at Trump Tower all the time. Like if I had 2 tours back to back and I was in the area, that's where I go.
Time Warner building, it's disgusting. You've got vagrants in there and toilet paper stuffed in. I went in there once. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't hold it. I went in. It was terrible. It was disgusting.
No, you go in, you walk straight, you go down the escalator, the famous escalator, same escalator that he came down to launch the campaign, and the bathroom's right there. It was beautiful. It was amazing. He provided a great service to the people of New York in that way, because a public bathroom in Midtown is very, very hard to find, and you need one if you're a tour guide. So I always love it. See, that's why I simp for Trump. That's why we are closeted Trump lovers, because we can't shit on a guy who gives us access to a bathroom in Midtown.
You can't shit on a guy who gives you a place to shit.
Gives you a place to shit, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Either way, but it certainly wasn't the most well-run place.
So you don't think he's going to make it?
Okay, so this is his classic Dangerfield bit on Joe Biden, and it's pretty funny. He does an insult comic bit on Joe Biden. His bit on Kamala might be even funnier. Like those two bits by themselves show you why he would eat Biden alive if they have a rematch. If they actually have a rematch, he's going to destroy him.
And Trump actually tells Tucker that he's not sure they will. He's still skeptical as to whether or not he'll be the nominee. But we don't get into that in this video. We get into why, because he feels like he just can't make it.
To November of 24.
Well, I think he's worse mentally than he is physically. And physically, he's not exactly a triathlete or any kind of an athlete. You look at him, he can't walk to the helicopter. He walks, he can't lift his feet out of the grass. You know, it's only 2 inches at the White House, right?
It's only 2 inches of grass.
But you watch him, and it looks like he's walking on toothpicks.
It's very well maintained.
And then you see him on the beach where he can't lift a chair. You know, those chairs are meant to be light, right? They're like 2 ounces. You lift them up. He can't lift the chair. He can't walk to the chair. She has some bad moments. Her
now he's
moments
talking about
almost
Kamala.
as bad.
She has some bad moments. This is the Harris bit.
Her moments are almost as bad as his. I think his are worse, actually.
Yeah.
But
she seems pretty senile, too.
She speaks in rhyme.
This bit is crazy.
It's weird. It's weird. But she has bad moments. And
in rhyme?
He says in rhyme, like he's not quite sure if he's making a racist attack there. I think what he's getting at. Like, are you really gonna be this on the nose? Can we go there? And then Trump kind of, I think, picks up on the subtext of that and kind of disguises it a little.
Well, the way she talks, the bus will go here and then the bus will go there because that's what buses do. And it's
There
weird.
is great significance to the passage of time.
You're kind of stepping on it, man. Like that. That's a great bit.
All right. I'll play it clean. I just, I'm analyzing the subtext as we go. I'll let it go.
Play it through, man.
All right,
it stands on its own.
All right.
Yeah.
But
She seems pretty senile, too.
She speaks in rhyme. It's weird. It's weird. But she has bad moments. And
in rhyme? What do you...
Well, the way she talks, the bus will go here and then the bus will go there because that's what buses do. And it's weird. The whole thing is weird. This is not a president of the United States future. The attorney general or the...
You can see... Okay, now that we let it play, so I didn't step
that,
on it.
That was a great bit, man. That was...
You can see the look on Tucker's face, like the kind of sigh of relief that he didn't go where Tucker was thinking he might
bus
go.
Will go there because that's what buses do. And it's weird. The whole thing is weird.
Yeah, see, like that face. Ooh, thank God. Ooh, thank God.
Okay, but this is a perfect example of what I'm saying. He's an honest liar. Like, on the one hand, you can't really trust what comes out of his mouth. But on the other hand, he is speaking truths in a plain way that nobody else would. You know, even if it's not that Ramaswamy wouldn't go after Harris, but Trump definitely has a talent for speaking. As rich as he is, he's a rich kid. I would never say no. He's very plain spoken and he's very good. This is what I always say about him. I don't know how he wound up with the mannerisms and personality style of a guy from Queens. Trump grew up a few miles from where I grew up. he seems like a guy from a bar in my neighborhood, and there's an appeal to that. It's weird. That's what a guy in a bar in Queens would say about Kamala Harris. It's very weird the way she talks. I don't get what she's talking about.
He doesn't really have an analytical mind. He's just all observational, right? So he absorbs it like a normal guy would absorb it just watching it on TV. She's weird with the bus here, bus there. He can't really dig deeper than that, which benefits him in a way because it makes him relatable. He's just another audience member chiming in on what he's watching. That's why he was good on TV. That's why he had a hit TV show. That's why he was a success as a, Studio 54 celebrity,
It makes him read as authentic.
Exactly.
This is not a president of the United States future. The attorney general or the district attorney, Fannie Willis.
So now he's talking about
in
the case,
Atlanta. She's getting killed.
Yeah.
Basically, she's saying Trump doesn't have the right to criticize an election. But you've been around long enough now. You've seen many elections criticized. I mean, Hillary Clinton goes crazy. Every time she talks, she says, he's not the president. Jimmy Carter said, he's not the president. Well, I am the president. Hillary Clinton called me, by the way, at 3:02 in the morning to congratulate me the night of the election.
Did her voice crack?
Well, her voice was, it's very different, I will say. I won't get into that. But
what do you mean?
Her voice was very different. Don't forget, they were all celebrating at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I came home and I said, I think we won. Yeah. Hillary called me up and conceded. Now, the word is that Obama said you have to do that.
Well, that is what
But she called up and totally conceded. But now, every time you see her on television, she's saying she's challenging the election.
Do you think...
So that would mean that she should be indicted.
It's true. She wasn't planning on conceding that night. Obama convinced her to because he said there's no way you can win, and this is going to be a brutal enough transition as it is. We can't have it go on any longer with any more uncertainty than will already be sort of guaranteed by this outcome. So he convinced her. Now, look, the point he's making here, which is that why shouldn't she be indicted? Look, the Clinton campaign didn't even participate in the faithless elector strategy that a lot of liberals were pushing at the time, right? Which sort of insulates them from these kinds of claims. It doesn't insulate liberals from accusations of hypocrisy. They were pushing the same thing. They didn't say overturn the election results in the states because they thought they were fraudulent. What the liberals were saying is they wanted states to come together and only appoint electors that would honor the nationwide popular vote, which in a way is almost worse because they're saying, no, we understand that Trump won the state of Michigan. We just don't want him to be awarded those electoral votes anyway because the national popular vote went to Clinton. Right, because democracy, because democracy.
But that would mean also that Stacey Abrams in Georgia should be indicted because she still thinks she won the election for governor. She still thinks that. She's never recanted. And
do you think Stacey Abrams will be indicted for that?
No, of course not. She won't be. The Democrats don't get indicted.
Now,
for
fair
things.
is fair. Okay, that's everything. I mean, that's a bullshit question because obviously they claimed foul play, but they didn't go to any lengths to actually fight it to the extent that he did. So, that was a softball question that Tucker posed there. The fact of the matter is, no, there's of course no way to indict Stacey Abrams for anything she said or did post-election in 2018. There's no way to indict Hillary Clinton for any of her post-election actions post-2016. If we're just being fair, we have to say that, obviously. However, the point remains that the Democratic base was perfectly happy to try to maneuver things in a desperate attempt to essentially, yes, cancel that 2016 result. That is to a large extent what Russiagate was that played out over the course of several years. But even in the days and weeks after the election, Jill Stein, this is one of the things that soured me to the Green Party. Jill Stein funded recounts in those Rust Belt states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, claiming that it was only for election integrity matters. Meanwhile, she didn't ask for recounts in Nevada or New Hampshire, which Clinton won by a far smaller margin than Trump won in the Rust Belt states. So if it was really about election integrity and not about trying to ingratiate yourself more with the kind of, liberal adjacent progressives who voted
how'd that
for
work out?
Clinton. Right. How'd that work out? Exactly. So it's not that
They're
the
still
liberals
thanking
can't be
her
accused. Right.
for her
Exactly. They're still thanking her. It's not that the liberals can't be credibly accused of being hypocrites on the issue, but it is apples and oranges in terms of like, why didn't Stacey Abrams get indicted?
Right. He's not being prosecuted for opining about the election. As broken as our system is, I don't think that would have happened. Now he'd still be getting prosecuted in New York on the porn star and the other fucking things. But this prosecution is not about what he thought about the election or what he said to the press about the election or what he said in an interview about the election. It's the steps they actually took to overturn the results in that state.
And it's not certain that he's guilty of those things, by the way. I'm not saying that. We're just saying that is the charge.
It's not,
and that's
it's not
why
comparable
it's not a fair...
to what he's talking about here.
Exactly. All right, let's read some more super chats here. Mr. Methuselah, thanks for the $10. Please put the GF link in the chat. It's much easier to access. I don't think it allows us to post links in the chat, so I will post it up.
If it's not a YouTube link,
if it's not a YouTube link, it doesn't work. But here, I'll put it back up while we're doing a super chat break, which we should do anyway. So you just got to write it down and sort of be analog about it. If the link is too much of a pain in the ass to write down and stuff, if you just go to GoFundMe.com, you can search the name of our show and it'll show up. It will show up. So that's another way to do it. But thank you very much for your interest. We appreciate that tremendously. Thank you, Mr. Methuselah. Lloyd Tackwell, I'm glad you mentioned this, okay? Because I do want to actually talk for a moment about this. I'm so glad DueDissidence is not one of those channels on the left that are climate deniers like Duran, Jimmy Dore, Grayzone, and Jackson Hinkle. Thank you. What I see from, and I don't watch all of those channels, but in terms of Jimmy Dore and the Gray Zone, I don't see climate denial, just as even in Vivek Ramaswamy's answer, he said the climate change agenda is a hoax. He didn't say climate change is a hoax. There's a difference between the climate agenda and climate change. To my knowledge, neither Jimmy Dore nor the Gray Zone deny that climate change is happening. They share a similar skepticism that I share, obviously. I was a big fan of the Planet of the Humans film that Michael Moore produced. His friend Jeff Gibbs made it, which didn't deny the reality of climate change. It rather denied the premise that the green movement is doing what has to be done to fight it. It's basically questioning the efficacy of the green movement and of these green programs. That's different. And I think that skepticism is valid because one of the thesis of that movie is that, hey, the first Earth Day was 50 years ago. And unlike the civil rights movement, which has a lot of progress to show for itself, it's not perfect, obviously, but most social movements, when they've been going for that long, have a lot to show for themselves. What does the green movement have to show for itself? Really nothing. We're worse off now. We're closer to the brink of climate disaster than we were 50 years ago. Now, it's not to say, hold on, let me just finish this 1 second. It's not to say that they have not done good things. It's to say that the good things they have done have not been able to outpace the speed at which we are hurtling towards climate disaster. And so when I hear climate skeptics, that's what I think about. And that's honestly what I see in the coverage that you just mentioned there.
That is partly the industrialization of the world outside the West. Because if you look just at New York City, people forget this now. The buildings used to have incinerators in them where they would just burn all the garbage, and you used to have these smog attacks. 1966, there was a smog attack that killed over 500 people. That's how bad the pollution was. The water around places like LA and San Francisco and New York are much cleaner now because of EPA regulations and guidelines than they were. The air overall is cleaner.
Sure.
But China was an agricultural economy back then. Right? India was an agricultural economy. So this is a big part of the problem. It's not that the EPA and the standards they've imposed have had no impact. They've had an enormous impact in the West. But the rest of the world is industrializing. So that's why they haven't really been able to outpace it, I think.
Fair enough. Yes. Bonzo Beans over on Rumble has a few Rumble rants here from Switzerland. Thank you for that foreign language tweet. Got to learn to welcome the hate among. That's the Green Party reference. Thank you very much. And you also say,
of course, the Germans have a word for that. Have a phrase for
that. You also say a regular segment of Russell in the Sopranos intonation would bring me quite some regular joy. Yeah, well, we have a lot of mob stuff on the soundboard actually, so we should be able to give you some of that. But thank you.
Gonna have to start getting drunk on the show.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but thank you very much for those donations here.
You could hear it if you go back to the way that I reacted to the Nantucket people. You can hear it coming out a little bit.
Yeah,
things
indeed.
like that definitely bring it out.
They bring it out for sure.
This motherfucker, this fucking guy,
this fucking guy over here. The fucking balls on this prick, right? That's
I'd like that. This fucking guy thinks he's a tough guy.
Fucking guy thinks.
Where the fuck do you get the balls?
Yeah, there you go. Cool Blue, thanks for the $4.99, my friend. In Pennsylvania and Michigan, as two top 10 populous states and non-top 10 Wisconsin have replaced Ohio and Florida as the nation's leading bellwether states. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially PA, because it has more electoral votes. So that's the biggest.
Yeah, like Ohio would never go blue now.
Yeah, Ohio's basically a red state.
What would that take?
Florida's basically a red state now, which just shows you how much the game has changed. I mean, 15 years ago, if I told you, okay, X candidate is going to win Florida, Ohio, and North Carolina, but they're still going to lose, you would say that's impossible. Because 15 years ago, that would have been impossible. Right. Trump won all those three states and still lost. So, yeah, the map has changed quite a bit. Pennsylvania, and yes, Michigan also, but Pennsylvania now, because of how razor close it was in 2020, that's the big prize. In 2024. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to hit that by accident.
I don't see the context.
It was an out of context.
Are you saying Jews flipped Pennsylvania?
Exactly, yeah.
Because I've never heard that theory.
It's an out of context sound drop. But yeah, that'll be the big state, and during the general election, we're right next door. So from where I lived, it was an hour and a half to Scranton. So yeah, that'll be a lot of fun covering that for sure. Eric Rousseau, thanks for the $2. Hang the Trump presidential portrait. Oh, so not the mugshot, the presidential portrait. Okay, I understand. The Robert Escobar Show, thank you for the $10, Robert Escobar. Should people be registering Green Party, do their own on-the-ground reporting? What's the move? Work the polls? What can working class people with limited money, resources, and freedom do right now? That's a good question. I mean, in terms of electoral politics, I would say at this point, I think registering Green for the sake of this election might be worth doing, in the sense that you might be able to have some impact on that organization from within, because for all the problems with the Green Party, it is very small. Like a massive influx of people into it could actually change it. That's worth doing. I would say if you're registered as a Democrat and you just want to undermine Biden, you could vote for RFK in the Democratic primary just as a means of doing that. That's looking more and more futile by the day, since his polls are actually going down. I think that's pretty much over. I think that phenomenon has pretty much run its course. So I couldn't even really advise you to do that
Marianne's
at
catching
this point.
fire there. It's hurting them.
Right. Well, even like if you were going to vote in a Democratic primary just for the sake of that, I would say that's probably futile now as well. And it will be. I mean, those campaigns were bound to run out of gas, and they are running out of gas. And you're seeing Biden opening up an even bigger lead than he had a couple months ago. Now he's consistently in, high 60s, low 70s. I mean, look, there was never going to be a contest. So, we said that from the jump, and some people took a little bit of issue with that because they thought we were kind of a wet towel. But that's just kind of the way it turned out. It was always going to turn out that way.
Yeah, and Robert, that is a great question, and honestly, a lot of what's going on here and at RBN, and particularly the show we do with them and Hard Lens Media, the Post-Duopoly show that we do every couple weeks, it's partly an effort to figure that out. If you look at some of the work RBN does with mutual aid, I think that's pointing in the right direction. I think a lot of what we have to do is mutual aid and mutual support, and find ways to work outside of the political system to build community and to build movements, because I think that is part of the way that you build the kind of power that can challenge these institutions. right? If you're there on the ground with people providing community help, it's a lot easier to talk to people about what you want them to do in the election, right? People that you brought pizza or books or childcare to, gonna be a lot more open to hearing what you have to say about Cornel West. Also, the burgeoning rebirth of the union movement is something I think the left needs to find ways to support and encourage that we haven't quite figured out yet. We're in the process of figuring it out, but it seems like broadly, the post-duopoly left is in agreement that mutual aid and support for working class movements, particularly union movements, is going to have to be a big part of the formula going forward.
Good answer. Indeed. And agreed. Courtney says, it's here. I tagged you in a pic of it. Send a P.O. box. All right, so Courtney sent Russell a gift, and I just looked that up.
Specifically? It's not us, it's me.
It's got to be for you, because there's only one of them, and you earned this one, my friend, so this is yours. So I'll put this up on the screen because Courtney just tagged us in a photo of it on Twitter. It is a cowbell with DueDissidence engraved on it. I got a fever. The only prescription is more cowbell. Look at that. A personalized DueDissidence cowbell. Well, thank you, Courtney. That's very sweet of you.
When I get it, it will occupy a place of honor behind me for every show.
That's great, actually. That would be a great thing. And actually, now you'll have the singing bowl for the thank yous, and you'll have the cowbell when we get a troll, when we get a hater in the comments. You just ring it in there. Ring it at the screen.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, that'll come in handy. Well, Courtney, that was very thoughtful.
Thank you, Courtney. That's
sweet.
amazing. That's amazing. I love it.
Indeed. That's awesome. That's awesome. Extra Bullet, thanks for the $10. Tired of you a-holes calling me cheap. Well, thanks for the $10. Love, as always, to the fam, Keaton. Love to you, Extra Bullet. Thank you. And yes, the Trump crapper is pretty dope. IT repair days. Kisses, I paid $10 for this. Well, I hope it was worth it. Thank you, Extra Bullet. I appreciate that.
Thank you, man.
Very, very much. Llama A.O., thanks for the $19.99. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Donation. Thank you guys very much for your generosity this morning. Let's go to segment number 5. Jordan Peterson lost his appeal against the College of Psychologists of Ontario, which is like a government sort of licensing body. I had the tweets queued up, but I lost it when I featured Courtney's cowbell image, so I just had to find it again. Here it is. Let me show you the tweet here. This was a back and forth with Elon Musk. So first, Jordan Peterson tweeted, so the Ontario Court of Appeal ruled that the College of Psychologists of Ontario can pursue their prosecution. If you think you have the right to free speech in Canada, you're delusional. I will make every aspect of this public, and we'll see what happens when utter transparency is the rule. So what he's referring to by this is in January, a court ruled that Jordan Peterson, for some problematic social media posts, had to undergo sort of social media training in order to keep his license active and intact as a therapist. So Elon Musk responds, wow, and Jordan responds back, sorry, it's worse than you think, Elon. My tweets criticizing the trans insanity and Justin Trudeau are the putative reason. The judges are progressives appointed by Justin Trudeau, and all the professionals in Canada are so terrified of their professional regulatory bodies that they are terrified into silence. And even those who aren't intimidated in that manner can't afford the extremely expensive and endless fight. Not good. So this is from a Fox News article. They did a write-up just kind of summarizing briefly what he got in trouble for in the first place. Peterson has generated controversy in recent years with several posts calling out trans ideology, politicians, and other topics. Last year, the psychologist was suspended from Twitter, now X, for rebuking transgender actor Elliot Page. Peterson posted, remember when pride was a sin and Ellen Page just had her breast removed by a criminal physician. Peterson was let back onto the platform following Elon Musk's takeover of the social media company. That same year, Peterson also trashed Sports Illustrated for featuring a plus-size model on its May cover, posting, sorry, not beautiful, and no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. For those posts and similar ones, the College of Psychologists ordered Peterson to undergo the training. It stated that if he refused, he could lose his psychology license in Ontario. Peterson responded to the social media in January. To clarify, it's been decided I either submit to social media communication, retraining, or face a disciplinary hearing and possible suspension of my clinical license and the right to represent myself as a psychologist. Okay, so we're going to play a video in just a minute, which was his response to this recent ruling where he lost. We said this back when we covered this back in January, that I do not approve of either of those two posts. When you talk about Ellen Page and a criminal physician, Ellen Page is an adult. I'm sorry, her name is Elliot Page now. Got to be careful with that. That was an accident, okay? Don't come at me. It was an accident. I'm just saying because I read it was an accident. It was an accident. It was an accident. I just read it on the thing. He is an adult. He could do what he wants, right? I mean, like at a certain point to troll like that, yeah, you're being a bit of an asshole. I think he was an asshole to go after the Sports Illustrated model as well. I personally didn't think the Sports Illustrated model was bad looking at all, but that's kind of almost besides the point. I think he was a bit of an asshole for saying both of those things. The question is, can you have your credentials stripped for being an asshole? That's the Sports Illustrated model.
She's Rubenesque. I'm saying Rubenesque. She's not like morbidly obese.
No, I mean, I think, and look, honestly, that's less
beside
the point. Less the point. The point is, I thought those tweets were nasty and uncalled for. The bigger question is, do you have a government body revoking your license for tweeting out things that are nasty and uncalled for? Those are public tweets, right? If people didn't want to, enroll as a client or partner of Jordan Peterson because of those comments, if they didn't think he'd be the right psychologist or counselor for them, that's fair enough. I can't imagine he'd be the right therapist for me either. I'd imagine session one, your problem is you hate America because you're an ungrateful
I'd be like,
bastard.
listen.
Come to me next week when you learn some goddamn respect.
You got to sing Rainbow Connection. I'd be like, you got to sing Rainbow Connection.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Why are there so many songs about rainbows? That's his. That's going to be his second career.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I look. I don't imagine he'd be the right choice for me either. The question is, should you lose your license over that? Like, his opinions are out there. If people don't want to enroll with him, if they don't want to do business with him, that's their right. But should the government be able to revoke your license or send you to a social media re-education camp because they don't like what you say? This is a loophole that they're using in Canada. They're using the same thing here, as we'll talk about in a second. I think we can play that video now, right? We don't have anything to get to before that. Do you have anything to say before we play it?
Well, I'm just going to say you folks can vote. So I only have 10 days left before I go to Rome. So I want to do one shit post before I leave. So the two subjects I'm considering are why you don't care about the Hollywood strike, and is Canada the dystopian hellhole that Huxley warned us about? So vote in the chat. I will scroll back and take a look at it later.
So what do we
Which
have?
shit post do you want to see?
All right, so we'll call option A the Hollywood strike and option B Canada.
Canada.
All right,
yep.
so
A or B.
A or B. All right, we'll open that up now for the segment. Here's Jordan Peterson commenting, I guess, shortly before he left for the Republican primary debate on his Daily Wire program, talking about the result of this hearing and the implications.
Apparently, the college has the right to decide that I can be re-educated forcibly with the risk of my license, essentially because I made political statements that the members of the college don't agree with. And those opinions involve two criticisms of Justin Trudeau, one criticism of his chief of staff, one criticism of an Ottawa city councillor, and then my objection on Joe Rogan to the climate apocalyptic fear-mongering that idiot tyrants are foisting on the general population.
All right, now he did leave out the two things that we mentioned, right, in the original reporting, because they make him look like, a bit of an asshole, which is fine. I think, in my opinion, you should be free to be a bit of an asshole and not lose your license over it. But he is glossing over that now, to be fair.
Also, just style tips. If you don't want to be vilified, don't dress like a Batman villain in interviews. What, did he steal that coat from Harvey Two-Face?
Right, exactly.
Now, apparently that makes me unprofessional and a disgrace to the profession, such that I am now going to be required, the college can go ahead with this, to put me into a re-education program with their so-called social media experts. And that's also, by the way, a profession that does not exist, until I learn my lesson, whatever that is, regardless of how much time that takes, by their judgment. Or they can take my license away.
Okay, I just want to pause there for a second, because that point that he makes, social media expert, which does not exist, that's a good point. And that's another part of this that gets lost in all of this.
What does that
a lot
mean
of this
exactly?
woke stuff, and we've talked about this in the past, whether it's ESG or DEI, a lot of this is just make work for PMCs.
Right.
It's a big
Right.
make work
They
program.
just confer credentials to people.
Exactly. They confer, right, exactly. So you basically create a problem that doesn't really exist, and then you hire a bunch of people to help solve it, knowing they can never actually solve it, but they're going to help manage it.
Well,
right?
you've got now, as somebody who has directed a lot of nude scenes and a lot of sex scenes. So now, when you direct that, you want to have an intimacy coordinator. Do you need an intimacy coordinator? I'm the director.
Right.
Like I don't need you there. I mean, nowadays I would definitely make a point of having a woman stage manager or something, there at the time.
Right.
But I always had that too. It's not like we got together in my apartment when I
Right.
directed things like that. There were staff and crew there. I was never like alone directing scenes like that. So yeah, you just created a job for these people. But now I think most directors would be afraid to direct a scene like that without an intimacy coordinator.
Right, exactly. No, I mean, I never directed nudity, but I have directed, love scenes and stuff like that. You do it the same way you would any other
kissing,
scene.
anything.
Yeah, you do it the same way as you would any other
Right.
scene, really.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, obviously, when you got nudity, you have to be more sensitive to how you set the room for that kind of a scene. Like directing that, rehearsing it, you have to be set. Obviously, it raises issues that are not raised when you're, directing some wacky slapstick scene.
Right.
If you're a good director, you're going to be sensitive to that. And if you're a bad one, you're not. Yeah, sure. Like, have I heard of directors abusing their position? Yes. I'm not saying there was no problem there like that, but that's why you should have other people in the room. And that solves it. But it's an example of now this is a whole new career in the field, intimacy coordinator, that I don't think you really need that, and it doesn't really make any sense. Would you have wanted Stanley Kubrick's sex scene directed by some, half-ass DEI?
Yeah, no, that's part of
certified
directing, right?
person?
Exactly. So all this stuff is, you make problems and then you hire people to solve them so that people can get a gig. All right, so we're gonna play the rest of the video.
There's something just quickly. Peter Turchin, who's kind of making the rounds in a lot of interviews. This is his premise. He wrote one of these, civilization is collapsing, and this is how we're following the civilizational pattern kind of books. And one of the things he says is elite overproduction is one of the things that brings down societies and civilizations, because once you have too many elites, they're not able to really attain the kind of wealth and achievement and opportunity that elites expect, and then they start turning on the system.
Okay, so we're going to play the rest of this, but just before we do, I just want to say the DueDissidence decision desk seems to be very clear that the bees have it, so you're going to have to write that monologue on Canada.
They want the Canada dystopia.
And not the strike, right, exactly.
All right.
All right.
That's the one I wanted to do, so cool.
Beautiful.
Cool, we're on the same page.
All right.
And so the court says, well, of course you have freedom of speech, Dr. Peterson, but because you're a professional, you're bound by your professional organization. And apparently they're not bound, even though they're a government organization, fundamentally. Apparently they're not bound by that fundamental constitutional axiom. And so that shows you, all you Canadians who are listening, and everyone outside of the country who might be the least bit interested in Canada, that shows you exactly what our bloody constitution is worth.
Well, if it's any consolation, Mr. Peterson, our Constitution doesn't seem to be worth all that much more here, since it's the same thing, right? The sort of centers of power, be they state centers of power or corporate centers of power, find loopholes to get around violating your quote-unquote constitutional rights. So the First Amendment here in our language says that the state can make no law governing free speech. Doesn't say that corporations can't crack down on free speech. So now you have corporate power becomes more powerful than the government because we're a fascist country, basically. At which point Twitter has more power over discourse than any government possibly ever could. So then when they censor you or YouTube or Facebook or whatever, we get around that by saying, well, that's not violative of the Constitution. Same thing here as it is there. They have similarly worded, what do they call it? The Charter on Human Rights up there. It's not called the Bill of Rights, something like that.
Yeah, they have something instead of what we have.
And it's very, very similar. The language is very, very similar to our First Amendment here. But yeah, they'll find workarounds. They'll find workarounds up there. They'll find workarounds down here. And this is just, it speaks to something that's broader than just Canada or the U.S. It's a worldwide issue of the government and the corporate state sort of merging in order to find loopholes in their constitutional documents that afford people rights. And they find out ways to violate them without technically violating them.
Right, do it through the professional organizations, and they'll use the same. It sounds like they're using the DNC defense. We're a private organization; we can run it however we want. Right, we're a private professional licensing organization. We have a right to enforce standards. That's our purpose. That is extremely dangerous, and once again, we see, because whenever we get into this stuff here and there, we have some Canadian audience, and they'll point out that they have something similar to what we have. But clearly it's not what we have, because say what you will about America. We just did a story about this. I think it was last Friday's show about the hate speech laws in England. This is the consequence of having these woke movements in countries without a First Amendment, where these people can just really go all the way with it without legal challenge. And it's not to say you're right. I mean, I was just watching a story of a woman who gave a speech at a school board hearing that she didn't like the way they were teaching gender and sexuality in the school, and the activist got her fired from her job with Compass. And the result of what you're describing, that these corporations have so much power, is the people now are fighting back the only way they can with boycotts. This is why you have the Target boycott. This is why you have the Bud Light boycott. It's the only way they can strike back at the power of these organizations. And predictably, when you see how these boycotts are covered in the media, these are horrible right-wing conspiracies. It's that I thought people believe in fucking democracy. What could be more democratic than a boycott, right? That's capitalism, baby. They're voting with their dollars. I thought you people believe in that shit, right? It's they want to squelch any power that people have to express their preferences that go off narrative. But when you look at Canada, and that's what inspires me to want to write what I will now write, my shitpost, there are visions of dystopia that are liberal. Right? The ones we usually look at are the totalitarian ones, the fascist right-wing ones. Because let's face it, most writers are left-wing, so that's the kind of vision of a dystopia they usually produce. But there have been exceptions, like Huxley's Brave New World is probably the most famous example. And Canada really more and more evokes that for me, between the compassionate euthanasia quickly evolving into a scheme to kill the poor, and their speech laws. And let me be clear. As Keaton said, we talk specifically about the trans issue regarding minors. You have never heard me or Keaton talk about it beyond that.
Well, so minors and the sports thing. So yes, there's the issue of minors and children not being able to make that choice.
Women's spaces.
Biological women preserving certain spaces in order to
For
maintain a
themselves.
standard of safety and fairness, certain spaces, right? Not the
Certain
chess
spaces.
team, not the chess team.
Which,
as Riley
right.
Gaines just
As soon
went on
as
this
we
thing
heard that,
about
we were like, that makes no sense.
Right,
You know, as we're always saying, it's not that we're anti-trans, it's that we're pro-rational thought. Right. Like when you start saying, no, men have no advantages. Come on, man. Does anyone actually fucking believe that? Come on. Come on. Stop it. Stop it. But Elliot Page is a grown-ass person. That's their option. That's their right. That's not any of anybody's business. That's not any of Jordan Peterson's business. This woman, and hey, look, I'm sympathetic to the argument that, and I've said it before, healthy at any size is bullshit. And I think in a lot of areas, and that one, it's very, very clear. I think you have corporate interests that are taking advantage of the left's knee-jerk tendency to go along with the idea that challenging convention or challenging presuppositions is always a left position, to get sucked right into supporting a corporate agenda. If you look at how horrific our food chain is, our food supply is in the United States, who do you think wants to normalize obesity? Do you really think those are idealistic people
lobby,
fighting for body positivity?
Factory
or do you
farms.
think it's craft?
It's
right?
factory farming. It's yeah, it's all that. It's Monsanto. It's all that shit. Obviously,
right.
And so you know,
but at the same time, first of all, I don't think that was appropriate. I think there are models who are being like I forget her name. She became very famous because they featured her on the cover of their famous swimsuit issue. And that was ridiculous. This one, look, I mean, this is a case with that particular model where she's Rubenesque. Look, even that, based on science, is that the healthiest body shape to maintain? No, but it's not to the point that I think that was the person he should have directed that at. And besides that, to do it in such a nasty way, like if you want to write an intelligent post about what we're talking about, that why normalize this to people, fair enough, but that's not how he put it. Like, do you really have to be that much of a fucking dick about it? Like, that's the whole point. Like, I think the sweet spot is you want to get away from fat shaming or being cruel to people who are have weight, while at the same time not succumbing to anti-science notions that the idea that being morbidly obese is unhealthy was a conspiracy of white men to keep somebody down, or you know, I mean, just crazy shit. He could have said that in an intelligent way. But then, hey, look, you got other things they're calling him in for that we didn't get into, like speaking out against Trudeau, speaking out against their policy, them talking about taking children out of the homes of people involved in the trucker protests that are truly terrifying anti-speech move. I mean, all of these are anti-speech moves. I would defend his right to say any of this. But then you have other things that I think are more sympathetic comments that he made that are lumped in here too.
Well, because the thing is, he's saying this, he's like expressing an opinion on social media, right? So it's wrongthink. Like, so much of what they want to go after you for in terms of wrongthink could actually be refereed or hashed out if, say, he had a client that he was counseling and he went on a cruel sort of fat-shaming rant against them. They can then file a complaint with the board, and the board can review it, and they can do whatever they feel they have to do based on that, right? That's something that happened while he was acting as a counselor, right? And so that's fair game. To just go on a person's social media and then just cancel them for wrongthink online that had nothing to do with his conduct as a certified pro in that field, that's over the line. Now you are just finding a way to circumvent people's guaranteed sort of constitutional rights.
And the judge is arguing that in his capacity as a public figure, he's, presenting himself as a licensed psychologist, so he can't have it both ways. That is a fucking insane argument.
It's insane.
That's an insane argument. So that's saying if people know you're a doctor and you express an opinion online, you're professionally liable because people know you're a doctor and you're presenting yourself as a doctor.
It's not even consistent with their worldview because these people are all about trusting the experts. Well, if you don't allow experts to elevate their personal profile, then only the rubes like us are going to be the ones who are allowed to speak because we're not certified to do anything except walk people around New York City, right? So then, so like you're only going to hear from us on these issues, and then when we get popular, you're going to say, well, you're not an expert, don't listen to them. Okay, so where are the experts? Well, the experts can't speak out because if the experts say the wrong thing, then we're going to take away what makes them an expert. Them.
Right. The experts are people who conform to the establishment-approved narrative.
Exactly.
Those are the experts. Those are the only legitimate experts.
Exactly.
Brett Weinstein, anyone like that, they're not experts. Doesn't matter what degrees they have, what experience they have, what awards they've won. As soon as they go off the page, not an expert.
Not an expert anymore. Right.
Richard Dawkins, done.
Done. Cool Blue. I sent a contribution of $128 so far to 3,800. Will DueDissidence run it for a while? Well, thank you. That's very kind of you, Cool Blue. We appreciate that very much. So the 1-for-1 matching donation ends this week. So if we can raise enough money to get that matching donation up to $6,000, then we will have achieved our goal. But we'll keep the GoFundMe open until we hit that goal. So, but thank you very much. That is very, very kind of you.
Potentially, we could hit it this week.
This week, indeed.
If people contribute enough with the matching funds, which that's why I would say we only need about 1,200 now.
Yep, indeed. Justin Watson, thanks for the $2. Rebuking imperialist greenwashing isn't climate change denial. Yes, I agree.
Yep,
I think that's a good way to put it.
That.
Yep, indeed. Frank Warsham, thanks for the $10. If elections are free and fair and it's discernible who wins, objectively, how could you steal them? Liberals' rhetoric around stealing makes me consider for the first time ever they may not be real. Well, I mean, thankfully, we're allowed to talk about this on YouTube, but, you know, when you have a situation where a race is very, very close and there was a ballot that was designed in a way that was intentionally manipulative, as was the case in 2000, and they're doing a recount and they're noticing that Gore is actually gaining votes in the recount, and then the Supreme Court intervenes to stop it after significant lobbying and shady tactics like the Brooks Brothers riot, pardon me, you can make a case that, yeah, that was actually an illegitimate result. Beyond that, I agree. I mean, most of these recounts, almost all of the counting is actually done very, very well. Like when they do recounts, it's hardly ever do you get more than a few dozen votes that are miscounted.
I mean,
but that's why they have automatic recount triggers in place. So if an election is within a certain margin, a lot of states have it where, okay, if it's inside this margin, we do an automatic recount just to make sure, as they should. Why not?
Yeah, I don't trust the computers. They're too easy to rig. That's
we should have paper ballots.
Paper ballots.
It should absolutely be all paper. Absolutely. Pete Sweet, thanks for the $10. A duopoly will not be broken for years, if ever. The WC need coordinated strikes and a general strike, shutting it all down if necessary ASAP. WC means working class, so thank you for that, and we appreciate that. And I agree. Thank you for the $10 there, my friend. Right on. Okay, we will get to our last few super chats after this last segment, but I wanted to talk about this segment. This was a big week in the world. The BRICS summit from the BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, held their summit in Johannesburg, where it was announced that they were adding several members. So here is Fiorella Isabel from the Convo Couch with the tweet summing this up. By January 2024, the following will be added: Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. After these additions, the BRICS GDP will account for 37% of global GDP share. Population of BRICS countries will be 46% of the world's population, and BRICS will hold 44.35% of the world's oil reserves. Here is the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa making that announcement at the summit.
As the 5 BRICS countries, we have reached agreement on the guiding principles.
By the way, you could just see, I forget who Russia sent, but Putin has a warrant out for his arrest by the ICC. That's why he can't leave. So that's why he wasn't there. But you have the leaders of state from all of those different countries there.
We have reached agreement on the guiding principles, standards, criteria, and procedures of the BRICS expansion process, which has been in discussion for quite a while. We have consensus on the first phase of this expansion process, and other phases will follow. We have decided to invite the Argentine Republic, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to become full members of BRICS. The membership will take effect from the 1st of January 2024.
So there he is, making that announcement official. Here's the map of the old BRICS Alliance, or the existing BRICS Alliance, I should say, and the new one once these countries are formalized as part of BRICS in January 2024. So as you can see, they're in every hemisphere, it looks like. Brazil, Argentina, obviously Iran, and Saudi Arabia, who were previously really at each other's throats. It's not really clear as to whether or not this will make peace between those two countries, but it is certainly indicative of an alliance forming. And a lot of African countries have backed Russia in their war against Ukraine. And you obviously have Russia, China, India sort of cooperating economically. This is really the side of the Ukraine war that the media does not talk about, but this is, I think, the most important part of it. And this is really long-term what's going to be most significant about this. Now, when you add Saudi Arabia to the list here, as Fiorella wrote in that tweet, now almost half of the world's oil reserves are going to be under the control of what is the counterweight to NATO and the G7. And so that's a hugely, hugely significant thing. And, whoever is sort of putting out the line that, Ukraine is winning and Putin's a madman and that Joe Biden's holding NATO together and the G7. No, this is the West losing. This is the West starting to lose. And no matter, I've seen some write-ups in mainstream liberal press, the New York Times, saying, well, aside from China, they don't really have a lot of economic power. Aside from China, they have no economic power. That's like saying, aside from the ghost peppers we put in the salsa, it's not that spicy. You should be able to handle it okay.
Yeah. Well, and India, which is about to become the world's most populous country, being part of this alliance. This is the wages of weaponizing the dollar. That was more than supporting the Ukraine militarily in the way that we did. That is going to have tremendous long-term consequences, because you sent the message that you can't be trusted with the world's reserve currency. And you highly motivated countries that don't even necessarily like each other, like Iran and Saudi Arabia until 10 minutes ago, to work together to break your stranglehold on the world. And, we both, this segment is based, I think we both looked at a Washington Post article. And the Post, it tells you a lot about elite thinking about this. It was very much what you're saying. It was very, yes, well, these countries don't really have any economic force and they're not really able to do anything and they're going to fight with each other, right? And that all might be true if we didn't so highly motivate them to work together. Yes, under normal circumstances, it probably would have descended into a food fight, but you've made it existential for them to de-dollarize the world. And one thing I was surprised to see the Washington Post be honest about is that part of the appeal of Chinese leadership rather than American leadership is that it's values neutral leadership. It's not like we actually stand for our values, but we pretend to. And as a result, we'll criticize this country and that country. Yeah, doing business with a country, it's going to be like, you motherfuckers do what you want. We just want to build a road and a port. How about it?
Right.
That's very appealing to most of the people in the world, particularly given that American moral leadership has been exposed as a hypocritical sham for a very, very long time. If it was ever real, I don't think anybody around the world has believed that for quite a while. When I do Harlem tours where almost everyone's a European, and I always say, I traveled in Europe. You know how long ago this was? This was back when you liked us. And they all laugh because, obviously we don't hold that position even in the West anymore. Even most of our fellow Western countries, if you look at the rank and file people, they don't see America in a positive light anymore. So yeah, when you're the Iron Bank, Game of Thrones fans will get that. Keaton will not.
I will not.
When you're the Iron Bank, you have to be neutral. You can't fuck around. You can't fuck around because that's what keeps everyone from attacking you, right? You have to be neutral when it comes to that trusted position of having the world's reserve currency. As soon as you weaponize it on that kind of a scale, well, now the rest of the world is highly motivated to take you down.
Exactly. And not only, you mentioned how American moral leadership has been exposed as this sort of hypocritical sham. Part of that is also on a deeper level, liberal capitalist democracy, quote unquote, has been exposed as a hypocritical sham. One of the things that the New York Times was sort of concerned trolling about when we came to this was, well, now of the, what is it, the 5, and now there's 6, so there's going to be 11 of the 11 BRICS countries now as of 2024. Only 5 are going to be democracies or something. I forget what the exact number was, and I can't do the math in my head now. But like, you have, theocracies and autocracies in there right now, and isn't that a horrible thing? Well, no, that's the whole point. That's part of what has been exposed, is that this merging of capitalist economics and sort of liberal democracy has been exposed over the past several decades to have only benefited more or less the same kind of people who benefit from an autocratic state or a theocratic state, right? All the money and power gets funneled to the top one way or another, whether you give the people the illusion that they have a say in it or not. That's part of why this is happening, right? It's not just American leadership. It's the virtue of liberalism, the virtue of quote unquote democracy, the way we do it, is on trial, and it's losing. It's losing. This is something that they've been hip to for a long time. They just tried different ways to sort of deny it, right? But now it's becoming harder and harder because times are becoming more and more severe. And Putin saw an opening post-pandemic when the West was in a weak spot. He saw an opening to make his move and do exactly what they're doing now. This is not about, it was never really about Ukraine. It was all about this. Issue. Right, exactly. It was all about this. This was always the sort of big picture. And that's what we're seeing now. Alrighty. So that pretty much wraps us. We have some more super chats and Rumble rants to get to, but thank you guys very much for being here this morning. This was a great show. I love the morning shows. I feel like we're fresh for the morning shows. I think they really work. So thanks to our audience, of course, for tuning in. Going to put the GoFundMe link.
Morning shows are the best. We have
morning
the best
shows
audience for the morning shows. People are shocked. They look at the audience. They can't believe the numbers for the morning show.
Right, they can't believe the numbers for the morning show. We get tremendous ratings.
I think we had 1 million people the last time we did a morning show.
Exactly. Well, we didn't quite get 1 million, and we didn't quite hit the 666 on YouTube.
Hit the 666.
But we might want to now do 666 if we combine YouTube and Rumble. Can we do that?
Oh yeah,
because now a lot of people are watching on Rumble. So we have 589 on YouTube, 139 on Rumble, which is fantastic. So we're well over 666. We're up into the 700s.
Right, fair enough.
Beautiful. We don't want to snub our Rumble crowd. And thank you guys all for being there on Rumble. It's a great crowd, and what a fantastic chat on Rumble. That's what we love to see. We love to see audience everywhere. So thank you all very, very much for that. We have the GoFundMe link. Once again, we are doing a donation match on the GoFundMe link. So we appreciate any donations that we can. Our anonymous donor is matching 1-for-1 any donation this week. So get those in this week if you can. And thank you. Bonzo Beans gives a Rumble rant. I'm going to read this off the screen here. In fact, I think I copied this into the banner image. Isn't the fat shaming debate essentially the same as addiction shaming? Do we want to be cruel and devaluing to opioid addicts? Do we want to normalize opioid addicts? Well, I think that's a good way to put it. Like, on the one hand, you don't want to normalize destructive behavior, but at the same time, you don't want to attack people in a way that is negative and judgmental, that's completely void of empathy for their situation.
Exactly. There's no reason to be cruel other than with Chris Christie about somebody's weight. Everyone seems to get a pass on Chris Christie. Nobody
because he's such an asshole. He asked for it.
He's such an asshole. Nobody ever complains about it.
He's such an asshole.
Yeah, you don't want to be cruel, but you don't want to normalize something. I mean, Jesus, the laundry list of health conditions, including they just released a study showing it's a risk factor for Alzheimer's. It's a predictor for Alzheimer's being overweight. I mean, diabetes, heart disease. I mean, why would you normalize that? I always say with anyone who argues the other side, hey, man, I smoked for 27 years. I never once said, stop smoke shaming me.
Right.
When people told me I had to quit. Same thing.
Right. Exactly. Yep. I think that's a good way to put it. Sorry, we got to that one already, but thank you, Pete Sweet. Eric Husso. More mass makes one more attractive. It's physics. That's the law. That's scientific principles, says Eric Husso. Thank you to Mr. Riffley for the $10. We appreciate that. Pete Sweet is now a YouTube member for 2 months. Yeah, you could become a member on YouTube and support us there. So thank you. Thank God for neoliberal globalism that ushered in a strong China and BRICS. Yeah, corporate greed has given away the true wealth of a nation. Labor. I mean, the interesting thing about BRICS, too, is now you have a President Lula in Brazil who doesn't want to strip the Amazon rainforest for parts. You know, he views the Amazon rainforest as the lungs of the world. Of course, his predecessor, Jair Bolsonaro, said, no, the Amazon's not the lungs of the world. It's the treasure of Brazil. So now with this new economic alliance forming between the oil in Saudi Arabia, the labor in China, and the Amazon in Brazil, you're talking about very, very resource-rich nations that are now forming a counterbalance to the West. And so that is definitely something to
nations
look out
whose
for.
resources have traditionally been exploited by the West.
Exploited by the West, exactly. I mean, the fucking hypocrisy of these people. They're not economically, they carry not much economic weight, as if we don't, exploit the Saudis for the oil, as if we don't exploit the Chinese for labor, Indian people for labor, Brazil, South Americans for labor. I mean, it's unbelievable. Excuse me, got some coffee grounds in my throat. Dave Dillarai, thanks for the $8. Jeffrey Sachs was interviewed early this morning on the Duran about Ukraine and BRICS 2. Interesting happenings. Yeah, he would be a great guest to have on the show, actually. I would love to talk to Sachs. That would be awesome. Ava Session 7, thanks for the $9.99. We appreciate that very much. Thank you for your generosity this morning, folks. We had some great Super Chat donations. We had some GoFundMe donations, some Rumble rants. It's all super helpful. Terry T says, thanks for the $10. Always worth watching. Well, thank you guys very, very much. Please hit that like button.
Keep watching. You'll see.
Yeah, right, exactly. Please hit the like button to help juice this in the algorithm wherever you are, whether you're on Rumble, whether you're on YouTube, and wherever you are, please do hit that follow or subscribe button while you're here. That helps us stay in touch with you. You can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence and join us for our patron exclusive live stream that is going to be tomorrow night at 8 p.m. We are looking forward to that very, very much. So we will see you all there. You can also go to DueDissidence.substack.com, sign up as a paid member, which gives you access to those exclusive streams, as well as, even if you sign up for free, you get podcasts, audio podcast versions of most of our live streams. We didn't podcast the debate live stream, obviously, but most of the live streams, that's not just commenting on other content, will be posted in audio form up there as well. Tyler gives us a last-minute donation. Thank you so much. Is there some place I can buy that sweet swag? Oh yeah, I have to put this up, or do I need to stop being lame and up my Patreon pledge? So yeah, if you are a Patreon member at either $15 or $30, you get a T-shirt. But we are bringing our merch online soon. We want to add a couple of cool new designs before we really bring it online for everybody. But we should have it online pretty soon. I would say within the next couple of weeks. And what he is referring to, what Tyler is referring to there, is what I thought a pretty clever tweet. It was a dad joke kind of a tweet. Russell might not love this tweet. The humor's a little cheesy for him. But, because the Donald Trump mugshot was circling around, I decided to publish a DueDissidence mugshot. So this is our mugshot right here. And this will be coming online soon. What do you think? Is that too cheesy for you? That's not your humor.
And I get the ageist digs.
That's my dad joke. Get
I'm much cooler than Keaton. I mean, he is literally a fucking dad.
I am literally a dad.
I mean, I am, but not like Keaton is.
Not like me.
Not like him. Actually, that wasn't bad. That was all right.
That was all right?
Okay.
That was right. Yeah, that was not bad. It was timely, opportunistic.
Yeah.
Paul Chu, when do we get a show that syncs with Australian time? I have to figure out what Australian time actually, how it lines up. When I first moved to the city, I directed a play that was by an Australian playwright, and so I would have to meet with her for Skype calls.
It's
a
a
while we were
16-hour
rehearsing.
difference.
It was murder figuring out how. I couldn't figure out how. So what is it? So it's 16 hours. So it's wee hours of the morning in Australia now, right? 3:30 a.m.
Yeah, it's always going to be the only time well, actually, hang on. The only time you could do it would be the middle of the night.
Right, that's when it's prime time.
Convenient time there.
But if we start at 8 p.m., that's what, noon the next day in Australia? So that's not bad. It's just midday.
Well,
right,
it would be
8 p.m.
2,
here.
right? It's 2.
Oh, right, because 16. No, because 12 hours would be 8 a.m., and then plus 4 is noon. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what are you fucking complaining about?
Oh, so Paul Chu says it's 1:30 a.m. here, so it's 14 hours, I guess, on your side of the continent.
Oh.
Because Australia's got to be a couple of different time zones.
Yeah,
right.
Sydney's 16.
It's got to be. All righty, folks. I think that is everything, right? That's all we got for today, right, sir?
That is it. That's
beautiful. All right, folks, we got a lot of broadcasting coming up this week. Patron-only stream tomorrow. Go to patreon.com/DueDissidence or DueDissidence.substack.com to sign up. That's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of great stuff to talk about tomorrow. We're going to be back here at 7 p.m. on Sunday, the 27th. If you're going to the Jimmy Dore show at the Gramercy Theater tonight, you should run into Russell Dobula there. I'm sorry I cannot be there, but it should be a great time. And so if you're going over there, please do say hi to Russell there, and we will see you back here. Patrons and paid Substack subscribers tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then everybody else, we'll see you back here Sunday night, 7 p.m. Thank you very much for a wonderful morning. It was a pleasure, as always. Thank you for the well wishes for my boy. He seems to be feeling a little bit better, but we got to go pick up a little bit of medicine for him now, so we will be on our way. But thank you guys very much for being here today. Always a pleasure doing these Friday morning shows. These are always a great deal of fun. We'll see you tomorrow and or Sunday, depending on who you are. Until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Courage.
Please clap.